Committee on Finance. This is for the cultural agencies. Let me acknowledge the presence of my colleague, Senator Nancy Binay. And on the agenda today are the proposed budget under the fiscal year 2024 NEP of the following: NCCA with a total new appropriation of 37,570,000. NHCP with a total new appropriation of 250,779,000. National Library of the Philippines for 177,153,000. National Archives of the Philippines 666,034,000. Commission on the Filipino Language for 73,314,000, and Cultural Center of the Philippines for 357,151,000. Just want to put on record how important the hearings of your budgets are. As chairman of the Senate Committee on Sustainable Development, Innovation and Futures Thinking, and I'll speak for my colleague, but of course I'll give her the floor. She's the chairman of the Committee on Tourism. This is really, I mean, to put peso values to it, this is an income generating industry, but there is no income to generate if we cannot support you with a good budget, because a lot of your assets have to do with preservation of existing treasures, no? So, well, at least those of us here in the hearing today understand that. And you can rest assured that we will be very open to your request kung hanggang saan naman kakayanin. You can have our assurance. So just to tie it into the various SDGs, SDG 5 on gender equality, SDG 8 on decent work and economic growth, SDG 10 on reduce inequalities, SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities. I think it's so interesting kasi Filipinos are learning to travel and appreciate their own, no? Their own culture. And sometimes mas mura, minsan hindi rin kasi ayun nga, our chairman of tourism, minsan mas mahal pa mag-travel within the country, 'di ba? But if we can promote local tourism by sea, by land, yun siguro mas mura ng konti sa airfare. But that's why I'm happy that our colleague is here, because it directly contributes to the tourism revenues. So, order of presentation, we will hear from NCCA and then NHCP and then National Library, National Archives, Commission on the Filipino Language, Cultural Center of the Philippines. Our secretariat will be reminding you of your time limits. Don't worry, even though maiksi lang yung time, you have a lot of opportunity to meet with our staff and to submit and to highlight. So I just want to give everybody the chance naman to present, and then after that we can have more exchanges, and you know, like I said, no, we can still meet off after the hearing. So let's proceed. My rule is, but there's no other senator here, so I'm just speaking to the staff of the other senators. Pag kaming dalawa lang ni Senator Nancy, mabilis na to. We can just, you know, ask quick questions. Pero pag dumami na yung senators, the questions should be after all na sana. Pero hanggat dalawa lang kami, feel free. Dalawa pa lang kami. Pero pag madami na, kailangan after na lang kasi may ipit yung iba. So sige, I hope that's clear. On that note, I look forward to meaningful discussion, and let us proceed with the presentation of NCCA. And Mr. Manalo, are you presenting? Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. This year, we proposed for GAA funding, we proposed 524 million and received about 40 million. Only 40 million was approved. So we're requesting for reconsideration of 424 million. And next slide. And these are the items. There are 12 items. That's basically what I'm just going to explain. The first is the Biennale for 70 million. Then Likaan Resource Center, which is training for artisans. And then for the Met Theater, 62 million. And we have three, by law, we are required to assist with three museums. We are supposed to fund. So we put a budget of 10 million. These were oh, good morning, ma'am. Good morning, Senator. So we just talked about that we needed reconsideration for the Biennale, the Likaan Resource Center, and for the Met. And we are required by law to assist with uh three museums one in Cagayan de Oro, one in Kalinga, and one in Biliran. These were laws that were enacted last year, and we need 10 millions to help them with their basic plan before implementation of the construction. Then for Gamaba, I'm happy we have new Gamaba awardees, and we need 50 million for that. For ONA, it's their third. We're beginning a new round, and it will be 31 million. NAMSHA has requested for a budget of 70 million. And then our National Values Program, which is it will be a continuation of last year's. It will be for 14 million. Creative Industries for 15 million, and the Schools for Living Traditions, we will be establishing additional ones for 20 million. And for initial cultural mapping, though there's actually supposedly money that is going to be downloaded by law, according to the law, but we're already putting in a budget of 30 million to do more more workshops with LGUs. And finally, because of as a result of last year's earthquake, we are doing a national audit, national assessment of heritage structures, no? And we're going to begin this year we are piloting San Agustin, and next year it will be a bigger group. It will be a bigger group. We still have to determine which. It will probably be the National Cultural Treasure churches that we're going to assess in terms of electric wiring, in terms of all these other vulnerability to earthquakes. No, so that's for a total of 424 million. That's all.
Let me first acknowledge the presence of Senator Lauren Legarda. Okay, so that's your wish list, no?
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else you wanna say? Because you're still within your time, no?
Nothing
Okay.
more.
Senator Lauren, I was saying that questions na lang after para everyone
Want
can.
to see everything because
Oo.
maybe our questions will be answered by the presentation.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'll move on to the next presentation, which is NHCP. Dr. Calairo.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Senator Legarda. Good morning, Senator Binay. Good morning, everyone. So, this is the presentation of NHCP. At the outset, let me first present our proposed budget. Next slide, please. So, we have actually the original proposal is 430 plus, but the approved NEP would be only 256,619,000 with a variance of 196,173, or 43.33%. Next slide, please. Comparing the NEP to our present GAA, it's 344,629,000, while the approved NEP is 256 only. So negative, no, 88 million 10,000, or 25.53% of the difference. Next slide, please. So the total agency's wish list would be 301,777,000, which is divided into the regular programs and locally funded. No? The regular programs is 86,477,000, while the locally funded is 215,300,000. And these things, wish list will be divided into the following. Next slide, please. Oops. Labo. So basically, we have the The wish list divided into operations of our agency and the same time preservation of heritage structures. That includes maintenance and administration of national shrines and monuments and landmarks. We have 29 museums all over the Philippines. Development and maintenance of the information systems, formulation of plans and programs, commemorative activities because we have a regular commemorations. We also already include the implementation of Philippine Independence Day Parade. We are already conducting it. And to enhance our services, we include digital and public communications development and management projects. We also include implementation of the local history and heritage action plan in order to help our the local sectors, especially the local history committees network, plan their programs for more effective implementation. We also include heritage sites development like rehabilitation and development works at Pinaglabanan Memorial Shrine in San Juan. Also, the restoration of Punta Diamante Fortress, which is already on phase 2 because we already completed the phase 1. The regular upkeep of the Andres Bonifacio National Monument at Caloocan, we also allotted funds for that, for its rehabilitation. To empower our LGU, we conducted the LGU training workshop on local history and heritage in this year, and we would like to continue that next year. And also conducting material investigation of historical churches declared as NCT. It's actually a regular program of NHCP. Another heritage sites that we included would be the restoration of St. Catherine of Alexandria Parish Church Complex in Leon, Iloilo, which will be on phase 1. While the restoration of Nongon Old Casa Municipal at Antique, we already commenced the phase 1, so we are requesting for phase 2. Due to the destruction of the Carino House, which was already rehabilitated before, so because of the earthquake effects, though, we would like to again request for another 4 million for its rehabilitation. And in order to further our heritage concerns, we will conduct a detailed engineering study for Casa Hacienda de Naik in the site of the Battle of Perez das Marinas, which is a very important battle in Cavite. With regard to our lab, procurement of conservation section table, because we have this material conservation division, and I think it's very important to upgrade our equipment. And also fabrication of cast bronze historic monuments, because we will upgrade our existing monuments in selected museums and install another monument for Emilio Aguinaldo as the part of the 125 first president of the first Philippine Republic. Okay, so more or less that's the wish list of NHCP for this project. Thank you very much, Madam Senator.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to National Library. Mr. Cesar Adriano.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Senator Lauren and Senator Binay. Nagpapasalamat po ako na yung mga sumusuporta po sa NLPI present ngayon. And of course, Madam Chair, due to time constraint, I will start my presentation doon po sa i-report ko po sa inyo doon sa mga projects natin, Madam Chair. First slide. Okay. Madam Chair, if you can remember, last year we proposed 20 million for our permanent gallery for the National Library. And hindi po nabigyan yun ng pondo sa NEP level, but your office provided us 10 million budget. So ito yung magiging itsura niya, Madam Chair. Kung makikita nyo, by November, ma-open na natin yan siya sa public. Yan yung magiging permanent gallery natin. And last year also, we proposed 19 million for our modern children's library. Hindi rin ito napondohan sa NEP level. We proposed 19M and your office gave us 6 million for this project, Madam Chair. Ito yung magiging itsura ng 6M for this year, Madam Chair. Pero yung target talaga natin dyan, magiging interactive siya. So hindi pa siya magiging interactive pero inuna namin yung paintings, lahat ng mga libro. That is why we will be asking para sa mga gamit sa loob for next year para sa children's library. Also, Madam Chair, if you can remember, parang pang fourth phase na natin itong gas-based fire suppression system. Ito yung present ko last mga 4 years ago na nag-start ito. Gas-based siya, hindi siya kasi nga yung collection natin, masisira din siya pag tubig yung ilalagay. Medyo mahal siya, Madam Chair. That is why, galing sa advice nyo rin kasi malaki yung pondo. Year by year yung proposal natin. So, I'm proud to say, Madam Chair, na nalagyan na natin ang 8 stock rooms ng National Library. May natitira tayong 4. And then, last year, we proposed 46 million for this. And ang 39 million dapat noon para sa isang stock room at saka yung natitira is para sa data center. But we were given 24 million last year. So ang ginawa namin, inuna namin yung data center, then yung sobra, nakaabang na siya para sa isang stock room. That is why we needed 20 million, Madam Chair, para matapos namin yung isang stock room na naka-ready na siya for next year. And then, may 3 na lang tayong naiiwan pa. 3 na lang, Madam Chair. Matatapos na talaga natin yun siya. And then also, Madam Chair, last year, nabigyan nyo rin kami ng pondo para sa CCTV surveillance system ng buong National Library. And we proposed mga 10 million doon and we were given 4 million. Ang ginawa namin, Madam Chair, ang binili namin yung CCTV, which is na-install na sa buong building ng National Library. But ang problema namin, kulang talaga yung pondo para sa recording. So, nakalagay na yung CCTV pero wala siyang recording. That is why we will be asking also mga more or less 3 million lang para sa recording, Madam Chair, para at saka yung playback ng CCTV. Pero naka-install na yung CCTV sa buong building. So, basically, Madam Chair, ang aming hinihingi lang sa wishlist namin is yung natanggal sa original proposal. Our original proposal was 242 million and 210,000. Ang nabigay sa amin sa NEP level ay 184 million and 15,000. So ang balance lang ng hinihingi ng aming ahensya ay 58 million 195. Napakaliit, Madam Chair, para matapos lahat yung projects na ito. So, and then we also propose na hindi napondohan, Madam Chair, doon sa aming proposal ay yung training ng ating mga empleyado mula nagsimula ang pandemic or even before the pandemic, Madam Chair, hindi na po tayo nakapadala ng mga staff natin na magte-training abroad regarding paper conservation and yung mga kailangan pa namin sa National Library. So that is why, Madam Chair, ngayong taon, lulubos-lubusin na namin ang pwede naming mapadala ang ating mga empleyado para ma-strengthen din natin yung mga binibigay nating training sa mga public libraries. So, yun lang siguro, Madam Chair, kasi sinisenyasan na ako dito. Pero nag-uusap na kami ng mga staff mo alam nila at updated sila nito. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Let's move on now to the National Archives of the Philippines, and let's call again Mr. Ino Manalo.
Uh, Good morning, Madam Senators. It's me again. So, first, can we have the first slide? Wala na talaga akong buhok sa likod, no? Anyway, so we requested for a billion, 1.3 billion pesos, of which 667 million was given. Of that 667 million, about 500 million is for the next phase of the Intendencia restoration for our headquarters. And therefore, we are requesting for essential projects that are still needed to the tune of 474 million. And this amount includes next slide, please. This amount includes a warehouse that we are already currently renting, but we do not have funds for next year. And then also for the acquisition of a big lot outside Cebu City for the for the Central Visayas archives, and a small lot in Manila. I'm sorry, in the city of Cebu. So the point is we have already funding. We have already bought 2 buildings in Davao, and the Cebu archives are pointing out na they have to catch up. No, next slide. We pareho, just like we need we need to fund our capacity building program, just like the National Library. We need paper preservation. The last time we had training for paper preservation and conservation is 2004. So we really need to update our skills there. But also because we are in charge of the National Electronic Records Program, we have to continuously to retool our people for this, no, and hire more people. Now you can imagine that for this, though you told us not to include our mandates, but just to remind everyone that we are in charge of every single agency in the country with regards to records management. That's what makes us different from any other cultural agency. We have to service every agency. And for Cebu, we only have 9 people. For Davao, we only have 10. So we're requesting for 160 new plantilla positions. And altogether, that's it. Okay. Altogether, that comes out to 474 million. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Let's proceed now to the Commission on Philippine.
Para po sa fiscal year 2024. Bakit 2023 yan? 2024.
So that we don't waste time, it's okay. Dr. Casanova will ano na lang. Para we can see your slides, I'll call on the next agency and then ibalik ko sa inyo, ha? So we can fix that, no problem. So let me call now on Cultural Center of the Philippines, and Dr. Jaime Laya will present.
Thank you very much, Senator. The Cultural Center is in a rather unusual situation in the next 3 years because our main building is closed there will not be any performances in the main building. It needs rehabilitation because the foundation, the electricals, the sewerage, the fire protection system, everything is being investigated because the building is already almost 60 years old, and it simply is dangerous to continue performances there. And so right now, the building is being surveyed to find out exactly what needs to be worked on. And we're hoping to be able to reopen within 3 years. And so in the meantime, this has never happened before. And so the budget for 2024 up to 2026 really has to be considered as entirely different from what it has been in the past. And so for the next 3 years, and in particular in 2024, we need to go to the provinces and other places within Metro Manila to be able to fulfill our commitments to perform. And likewise, we have decided to take this opportunity to appeal to young people because young people have different tastes. They are receiving communication differently. And so, therefore, reaching them and encouraging creativity has to be entirely different from what it has been in the past. And so, what I'm trying to say is that the budget and the activities of the Cultural Center for 2024 and for the 2 years after that really are entirely different from what it has been in the past. And so it cannot be considered as mere projections. Now, in particular, the Cultural Center proposed sana a budget of 1,799,000,000 to be able to cover it. And DBM endorsed to Congress only 20% of our proposal, and the endorsement is as Madam Chair said, 356 million. That's 20% of what we had proposed, and what we're hoping is that Congress and the Senate would be able to raise the 20% back to 60%. Not even 100%, just 60% for an additional 722 million, which would cover personal expenses, personal services expenses, as well as additional cost of going out to the provinces, and likewise for the necessary funding for the building rehabilitation. The unfortunate consequence of rehabilitations is that you never know what you will discover until you investigate it. And so when tearing down the ceiling, for example, we discovered that the foundations, or rather the beams, needed to be repaired, which were not anticipated before. And so basically that is the reason for the budget proposal that we are proposing. Now, the activities in particular that we had in mind, appealing to young people, is as I mentioned before, they have different tastes right now. And so we have designed activities that are new. We never did it before. And so we have, for example, the rubric Canto Cultura, which covers Canto Canta, which encourages creativity among neighborhood singers. We want them to use a local language, a Philippine language. We want them to use a local instrument, and we want them to create. We are also going into literature, and so we have Baraptasan, Balagtasan in rap, encouraging creativity in literature, composition, poetry, and so on. And we're also going into traditional things, like the young people like tattoos. but the tattoos are dragons, etc. And we have traditional tattoos among the Cordillera people, among the Mindanao people, and so we're trying to revive them. So these are some of the innovative things that we are thinking of. And in addition to that, we want to go more into scholarships. Filipinos are just so talented. And we discovered, for example, one of the students of the High School for the Arts in piano was accepted at the Royal Academy of Music in London as a part scholar. And so we're giving him a grant. A flutist was accepted in the Longji school ba yun, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and so we're giving him a grant as well, and the same thing for a violin talent. So these are some of the things that we're doing, and we're hoping that the Senate will be able to assist us in increasing our budget from the 20% that was awarded us to at least 60% man lang, not even 100%. So basically, that's our budget presentation, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we've heard the wish list of all our agencies. Senator, sorry, yes, I forgot that we asked you to, is your slide ready? So you're ready? Okay. So ayan, you are the last presenter. So that means lahat ng presentation mo maaalala namin.
Isang mapagpalang araw po sa ating lahat. Ilalahan po namin ang pondo ng Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino para po sa taong 2024. At nais ko lang po sanang bigyang diin bago ko ilatag sa inyo ang pondo, na ang mga pondo po na aming lalagyan para sa tutunod na taon ay batay po sa mga mahalagang batas at mga kautusan at mga mandato. Kabilang na po rito ang yung tinatawag na naming sagip wika o language preservation. Ito po ay siyempre may kaugnayan din po sa tinatawag nating pagsasamapa ng mga kultural na pamana, sapagkat ang ating pong mga wika sa bansa ay napakarami na binubuo ng 135 mga wika, 134 po rito ay mga wikang tunog at isang wikang senyas na tinatawag pong Filipino Sign Language. At ang Filipino Sign Language po kasi ay mayroon na pong unit bilang pagtupad po sa batas ng Republic Act 11106. At binibigyan po namin ng diin ang tuon ang mga proyekto na may kaugnayan po sa pagsulong ng Filipino Sign Language, bukod pa po sa mga patuluyang proyekto ng Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino. At tulad na banggit ko, meron po kaming sagip wika o language preservation. Kabilang ngunit hindi limitado sa mga gawaing nito ang pagbuo ng mga ortografiya ng mga wika sa Pilipinas. Sa kasalukuyan po kasi ay meron po tayong 34 na ortografiya, at kung meron po tayong wikang 134, meron pa po tayong 100 dapat na isa katuparan. At gusto po naming madaliin na po ito sa pamamagitan ng pagbuo ng maraming ortografiya sa susunod na 2 hanggang 3 taon, nang sa ganoon ay matugunan natin ang pagbuo at paglimbag ng mga ortografiya, sapagkat ang mga ortografiya po ang batayan ng mga palabaybayan ng bawat wika, nang sa ganoon ay makapaglimbag tayo ng mga materyales para maunawaan po natin at mapalaganap at mapreserba ang kanilang wika. At siyempre po, ang lahat po ito ay nangangailangan ng mga pananaliksik at pagsulat. Kailangan po ng kooperasyon at kolaborasyon ng komunidad na nagsasalita po ng mga wika, at ang magiging produkto po nito ay ang paglilimbag ng kanilang mga ortografiya. Ikalawa po, yung tinatawag nating yamang wika o language repository. Kabilang ngunit hindi limitado sa mga gawain nito ang pagsasagawa ng dokumentasyon ng mga wika pagbuo ng mga corpus at pagbubukas sa publiko ng mga aklatan ng KWF sa aklatang Balmaceda. Ang aming pong opisina ay napakaliit at aming pong sinidaklatan ay kasalukuyang nililinang namin, dinadagdagan namin ng mga aklat nang sa ganoon ay mapakinabangan ng lubos ng mga mag-aaral, mga guro, ng mga manaliksik ang mga aklat na nakapaloob po sa sinidaklatan. Sa kasalukuyan ay meron kaming extension na opisina para lamang po sa aklatang Balmaceda. Kaya't ito po ay lubos na mapapakinabangan ngayon ng ating mga mag-aaral, guro, mananaliksik, sapagkat hindi lamang po ito mga pisikal na mga aklat, ngunit meron din po tayong matutunghayan na rin po yung mga aklat na ito sa online. Meron din po tayong sigla wika o language revitalization, kabilang ngunit hindi limitado sa mga gawin nito ang pagsasagawa. Okay. May sulong wika at may salin wika po tayo na may kinalaman po sa International Decade of Indigenous Peoples. Dito po ay sa kabuuan humihingi po kami ng 77,539,000 para po sa aming budget. At ito po ay may allotment last na MOOE na nagkakahalaga ng 37,409 na 35% ng kabuuan ng bondo. At PS po ay 50,130,000 na bumubuo ng 65 million ng aming pondo. At by appropriation source, ang agency specific po ay 73,314,000. Okay. At ito ay 95% and RLLP 4 million. Nais ko lang po sana bigyan yung nagdiin dito ang aming wish list. Una po rito yung sa sagip wika. Meron po kaming ortografiya ng mga wika sa Pilipinas na budget na nagkakahalaga po ng 7,700,000 at iba pa pong mga may kinalaman sa pagbuo ng mga diksyonaryo, korpus ng wikang Pilipino, bahay wika. Ipapasok din po dito yung sa aming budget yung bantayog wika at pananaliksik po sa panitikang bayan ng mga katutubong wika na talaga pong kailangan upang mapagyaman natin at mapreserba ang 135 wika sa ating bansa. At sa kabuuan ay meron po kaming halagang wish list na 55,806,257 pesos. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din. Okay, so we will begin. We have two senators here with us, Senator Nancy Binay and our Senate President Pro Tem, Senator Legarda. So, Senator Legarda, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to our culture agencies. Let me say, and I say this every year, I'm in my happy place. I'm so happy to be with all of you. However, when it comes to your wish list, we must be realistic. I think in behalf of the chair of your budget and the chair of the standing committee, para lang wag kayo ma-disappoint, imposible, hindi lang kayo sa bawat ahensya ng gobyerno na yung buong wish list ay mapapatupad. Yun lang. I took na your role, Sen. Pia, para wag sila ma-disappoint. Because I understand the value of the work that you do and the importance. Pero lahat po yan ay hindi mangyayari whether you're DA or DPWH. Para lang, I didn't want to douse naman your enthusiasm dahil maganda at ang kanyang mga minumungkahi. Sige, just basic questions. First, the NCCA in general. I would just like to put on record, Madam Chair and Senator Binay and all the members of the cultural agencies that while the selection and invitation of the Philippines as guest of honor to the Frankfurter Buchmesse in 2025 October is 2 years yet, and while the implementing agency who signed the contract is the National Book Development Board, because it is a small agency attached to the Department of Education, we decided to include the culture agency's family, the NCCA, and Chair Ino was there to meet the Bookmesse officer, CEO, as well as the other agencies of government. And it will also be the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Trade and Industry, among many. But the other agencies we will see depending on the need. But not to worry, Madam Chair, if it is not in the NEP or even in your own GAA amendments for next year, because this is for 2025 yet, and the Secretary of Budget already knows this. And if, I'm just saying this, in the event that it is not in the NEP or the GAA of those years, I will help in the amendments. And I would like to seek the cooperation of the cultural agencies. So just to the basic question here, Vice President Duterte, during the break in the DepEd hearing the other day, approached me and asked me for help for the schools of living tradition. And in Davao City, Bagobo and the Magtisalog, Bagobo, Tagabawa, and Magtisalog, she said, in her own words, are dying and need help. We didn't have a chance to talk about the details, but I would imagine this would be the situation in many SLTs around the country. So basic information, so we put it on record, Chair Ino. How many schools of living tradition on record based on research and historical data do we have in the country? Where are they located? And if you don't have the information, that's fine. You can submit it to my office. And in the past years, we've been helping the SLTs because there is a SLT program that's funded every year, but we know it's limited. How many have been helped already? So just a broad stroke. If we have 100 SLTs, first, how many ethno-linguistic groups? Because ethno-linguistic groups equals SLT, that's not necessarily one and the same. So how many ethno-linguistic groups per NCCA? Because if you talk to different groups, iba-iba. Okay, just like languages, and I'll get to that. No, pagdating sa SLT, ilan ang natulungan, and we may not have it in the NEP or even in the GAA prospectively, but maybe you should submit so that there's a long-term plan, just like there's a PDP, Philippine Development Plan till 2028. Perhaps you can give us a Arts and Culture Development Plan till 2028 so that every year, hindi pa butal-butal, we know where we're going. Example lang, 100 SLTs in the past years, 20 have been helped, so 80 more. Baka wala nang matutulungan kasi namatay na pala sa panahong yun. So kailangan ito ay matulungan na ngayon. So just that basic question. The status of Bagobo, Tagabawa, and Magtisalog, and how many SLTs have been helped, including this year, funded? Then how many is your ask, your wish for next year? Thank you. Chair Ino, please.
Sir, the information that I have here is that we have assisted 71 SLTs. Is it for this year or for accumulated? No, accumulated. And the rest of the data we will, as you allowed us, we will
Yes.
submit to your office.
Okay. When we say po 71 SLTs, this is from the beginning of time, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we're not saying for this year alone or the past years. Since the beginning of time, maybe the time of Chair Laya, right? So 71. What is our universe of SLTs? Just top of mind. If you're missing it by a few numbers, that's okay. 100 plus.
105.
Yes. When we say we've helped at least 2/3 of the 105 schools of living tradition, does it mean like the 71 don't need to be shepherded and helped and documented and given help anymore, capacity building? Or because natulungan yung 71 from the beginning of time, by the time we finish the 105, kailangan na naman tulungan yung iba? Or are they already really documented, preserved, conserved, that they can stand on their own and will not die in the wake of modernization, globalization, or whatever? Yeah.
I think the situation is different for each one. Yeah. For example, the Ilocos SLT of Magdalena Gamayo, there are constant like she needed to move it closer to transportation hubs, no? So it had to be moved, no? So that's an example that we still after it's been set up and it's functioning, we still have to intervene at one point. But there are others that are going on with their own vitality.
So, you're correct in saying that each SLP has a different nuance depending on the situation. And I think it does not mean just because we've assisted them before that they may not need help. So for this year, you have a program for SLTs, right? In a proposal for GAA.
Yes, yes.
But it would not cover the whole 105.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think you have a very good point. I stressed this recently in a women's business forum that an important aspect of the work we do with artisans is really documentation, because to some extent we may not be able to revive or revitalize all aspects of craft production, but we can certainly document them for future generations to decide what they want to do with them.
How many of the 71 or how much of the 105, assuming our numbers are correct, have been accurately, completely documented?
We would still need to review that, but I think it's very important that we should have a new stress on documentation.
That's why we have DAYAW. We started it in 2015.
Yeah.
And I would consider DAYAW as a large part of the documentation, which reminds me, I don't have the raw material. That's government funds. I hope NCCA, and that's where we go, archives, I hope NCCA has the raw material, not just the finished product being aired on ANC or put on YouTube. You own that. We own it, Filipino people. It's not the supplier, the ANC production. Do we have it? Yes. Just to stress, all the photos and all the raw material of beautifully photographed and video from the tutup weavers of Tawi-Tawi, all from north to south, and the tattoo of Kalinga, lahat. That should be stored. And please, the storage of that, diba? Pinaghirapan niya ng... But even before 2015, as you said, SLTs have been helped since Chair Laya's time. We hope that you are keeping it safe, all the documentation, and you can even upload it on YouTube so that, or it's on cloud already. We should not just store it in our own hard drives in rooms which may not be sophisticated enough to store it. Why don't you put it on cloud already, right? It should be on cloud. I'm not a very techie person, Madam Chair, but I think that's safer so that there's redundancy in the documentation which we've had for years, if not decades. Yeah. So I just want to stress the schools of living tradition. That is very, very important. That's part of who we are, and we can't lose it without not knowing it. So preserve, please. Preserve and conserve, and document, please. And when you document, store properly. And share, because kung tayo lang na 100 sa kwarto to makakaalam, o mga senador lang o congressman, i-share po ninyo sa ibang ahensya ng gobyerno at sa publiko by putting the documentation on all online platforms for people to appreciate. Sino ba nagsabi kanina, iba kasing hilig, ay sabi ni Chair Laya, Dr. Laya, na mga kabataan ngayon, you'd be surprised, mahilig na mahilig po sila sa ganun. And the fact that the Vice President ask for help. Mr. Oscar, kayo na po ang bahala. Make sure that your organic funds, wag po kayong titingin sa aming tatlo, o sige, amend nyo, magdagdag kayo. Meron kayong sa NEP na budget nyo. I-prioritize nyo, not just because it's VP Sara, but because it needs to be helped. Yung magtisalog at saka ang bagobo. And then we will be happy to receive your SLT reports, the universe of SLTs that we know of, who have been helped, and maybe in a rank of 1 to 10, or maybe just a line about them, their status, and the remaining kung 71 na natulungan, 105, so that would be 34 who have not been helped, baka patay na. Hindi yung tao ang ibig ko sabihin, yung kultura. Wag naman po, hindi ba sayang? So, I would suggest that you please have your annual budget to have SLTs at make a big portion for SLT and documentation. Maybe not necessarily hard copy, but it should always be uploaded at any time. Pindutin lang natin nandyan sa NCCA website. So that's my suggestion there. So first, your NCCA participation in the Frankfurter Buchmesse. Second, the Schools of Living Tradition. Now, may I kindly
Chair. Madam Chair.
go per agency? Per agency. Yes.
Madam Chair,
I said,
since
yes,
you
you
already
can
mentioned
interrupt
yung
me, ah.
SLTs, kasi with their wish list na 20 million, would this include an opening of an SLT or talagang maintenance lang tong 20 million?
Yeah, maybe to give a clearer picture of the SLT. The SLT started with as a soft program. So it's a 6 months training for a particular craft or tradition of a certain community. However, lately we thought that sustainability should be an important consideration in the SLTs, considering that we cannot stay in that community forever. So we made a 5-year development plan for each of the SLTs. So we have year 0, which is the grounding, year 1. Before, there's no specific place where you can find the School for Living Tradition. And it was so difficult because when we visit the community, we will have to look for where they are. So right now, all the SLTs that we have established after in the new program, they start by building a structure. And it should be a structure that is of the vernacular structure of the community. So it blends with the whole environment. So program 1 is having a structure and identifying what are these traditions that we will have to bring into the training program. The year 2 and 3 would be an in-depth training on the culture itself, the transfer of the skills to the younger generation. Year 3 would be, year 4 would be product development, because we thought that if this training will not end up into something of a livelihood, therefore we would not be able to sustain. Kasi kung wala naman silang earnings or walang livelihood that can be gained from the SLT training and program, they won't continue to practice the tradition. So like, for example, weaving, if the products of this cannot go to the market, therefore they won't sustain practicing such. So then the last is developing the parang co-op, so that the community would be the ones to market their product. Right now, under this program, our first batch are on year 4. So we are engaging the DTI in the training of the development of the product. And part of this, of course, is documentation from the training itself into the new product development. So I think this is the sustainability point that you had been looking for. So if the question is the 20 million that we're asking going to build? Yes, it will build. We are targeting for this year, targeting 6 and maintaining those that we have until we are able to complete the 5 years that they then we are thinking that they can already sustain by themselves. Lilipat na po tayo sa ibang community. In this, we will have to continue with the programs of those that are existing already.
But we will also refocus on documentation, because as I said, that's the option for those that will not be continuing in as a business or as a livelihood. No, we will review again the documentation and storage and all these other requirements.
What was your statement about business and livelihood? I didn't catch it because that's exactly what we were talking about.
Well, you sir, as she explained, there will be modules on encouraging them to work to set up cooperatives and set up a livelihood. But I think I don't know, my insight into personally, my insight into these kinds of situations, there may be situations where you cannot force them to do a livelihood. Some things are not for sale. So we can only document. The documentation, as been pointed out, is actually the paramount, because that is what gives it the chance in the future years for the new generation to take it up. in case
Yeah, thank
that
you
we
for
cannot.
citing that. What Miss Marichu, Dia Di Marichu meant was some may of course want to organize themselves
Exactly.
and sell their crafts, like the Nito baskets, for example, or let's say the tutup nga of the tawi-tawi, etc. But the others are intangible heritage, of course, like which cannot has to be transferred from generation to generation, but cannot be sold, of course. Yes. So it's a balance, and the nuances per SLT differs, right? So paramount, you're correct, Chair, is documentation, and perhaps equal or secondary to that would be a sense of livelihood and micro enterprise when applicable, but we will never force them because the FPIC would be so important to include as part of the process.
And
Yeah.
siguro just
Thank
to
you.
add, Senator Lauren, siguro baka din dapat medyo bandang dulo na yung as a source of income. Baka it's more of how do you pass to the next generation yung, let's say, weaving or pottery. And then kumbaga ano na lang yun parang dapat parang byproduct na lang yung magiging source of livelihood siya ng community. Yeah.
Me, no? My contribution to this discussion is from the SDG perspective, no? If you will recall, in my opening statement, I included the overlapping SDGs that are affected or that can contribute to quality of life, no? So SDG 11 is sustainable cities and communities. SDG 8 is decent work and economic growth. So I agree that hindi naman natin dapat talaga ipilit yon. But in my mind, the only way you can look at this in a sustainable way, which is the term that you used, is to include NEDA, because there should be an assessment if they are the ones in the below poverty level. Let's just say you enter that community and sila talaga yung poorest of the poor. So meron din tayong obligation sa government, maybe not you, pero us, na teka, sila pala yung poorest of the poor, sila pala yung malnourished, sila pala yung walang access sa school na malapit. How do we then incorporate all of that, di ba? Without forcing anything on them. So I think that's the bigger, and I'm the way you were explaining it makes me feel that you've thought of that, precisely why you're offering the economic opportunity. So ako naman, medyo baliktad din sa kanila in the sense na I'm open for that avenue to be explored immediately kasi I'm not really a proponent of a forever dole-out system. So if they are currently recipients, no, of the pantawid, 'di ba? So magkano yun per month? And then hanggang ganun na lang. And I hear of many communities, not necessarily indigenous communities, any, na happy na sila doon. And I'm not happy na happy sila doon. You know, I want them to know that there's a world out there that your children can discover if they can finish going to school. If they have even just a little bit more than 2 meals a day. So yun. So medyo, I just really want to ensure that holistic talaga yung approach namin, that no one gets left behind in the desire to preserve their traditions. Yun naman. I want to help it support, but not that they get left behind. Because without those economic opportunities, not all of them will live in an environment that their environment can sustain all their needs. You know what I mean? Like, okay, sabihin mo ng very, it's a wealth of natural resources. They have the food that they can eat. Pero paano kung may magkasakit? Tapos walang malapit na ospital, walang, so, I mean, this discussion can go on and on. But,
Yes, thank you.
but, yeah.
Actually, the SLT before was focused only on one particular tradition. But since we have the center already, part of the initial study is to identify others. So it can go from the craft to the chanting, to the performing arts. So it crosses already the whole. So you will see the School for Living Traditions with multi-form. No? So that is why it's not everything there that can be brought to the market, but basically if they have the products already, the crafts that can be developed. So innovation, we were also talking with DTI, and maybe they can become also innovation hubs of sort, but of course with certain care, no, on
Wait,
with
so,
protect-
so yung 70 nyo, may ano na yan, may structure na sila. Yung 70. And then, so the remaining, yun na lang yung wala pang structure.
I would just like it clarified. All SLTs are not necessarily of IP groups, or are all SLTs of IP groups?
SLTs for IP groups, ILT for lowland.
Non-IP.
Opo.
Okay, para clear. Because let's say the culinary tradition of Asintibuok in Albuquerque, Bohol, we would consider that a school of living tradition, but I'm not certain. I don't think the people of Albuquerque are IPs. You would consider that SLT or ILT?
Well, the basic difference is those in the SLTs should only be confined to the community and to the members of the IP group. When we open it already
So
to
it's
other
SLT,
forms,
it has to be IP?
IP.
And if it's non-IP but it's an SLT
Also the Muslim cultural community.
and the
Yes.
Muslims, but if it's non-IP and
We
it's
call it as-
considered a living tradition, what would you call it?
We call it as the Institute for Living.
Just so that we're on the same page, Chair Ino, ha? Pareho tayong ganun, oo. So, there's a bill, I think, I filed it previous terms, I'm not sure if I refiled it now, on the creation of the Institute of Living Traditions. Perhaps after review, my colleagues might want to co-author that. Is it important to institutionalize both the SLTs and the ILTs? Because I had the impression before that all these SLTs, if you put them together, so that we're all on the same page. And I will share with you the proposed legislation, assuming I filed it, even an old one of 207 perhaps, so that you can irepaso ninyo kung kailangan. And just so that this, and I will give my colleagues, these are everyday culture of schools of living tradition, which I gathered researchers to do it, and I'll give you copies. Like even Luzon, Visayas, we tried to do what we can. This is with NCCA, the itnegs of Abra, the Akyanon, iba-iba, halo-halo, at Malindog, ng Aklan, hindi the Palawan. So iba-iba. Ilan lang ito. Sana magawa natin itong nasimulan ko nung nakaraang taon. Sa lahat, it's a simple book. So easy. Put it in your car, put it on your desk, babasahin. I'll give you all a copy of this. Yes, parang Lonely Planet. Ang ganda. Tapos talagang pinagtsagaan. Alam ni Bernan. Ako kung ano kakulit niyan. Kaya kung ilan na document natin ito, itong pandemic work ko Yun. And they're quite good, if I may say. The photography is okay. The research is very adheres to FPIC. Yun lang. I mean, pinagmamalaki ko lang yung ating ginagawa. Gawin natin yung 100 na ganito, madaliin na natin. Kailan pa? Ilang taon na tayo di ba? Ganon. Sige. So, yun yung SLT, yung kahalagahan. Tapos yung definition lang po ng ILT at saka SLT para nagkakaintindihan tayo kung ano siya. Yon. Tapos bibigyan ko ang mga colleagues ko nito at meron pa tayo dyan. Yung unang linabas natin, basta yung una, yung kay Karina Bolasco na ginawa. Tapos patuloy natin gagawin, please. Wag natin kalimutan yung ganyan. Sa'yo na yan. If I may, Madam Chair, okay pa, I have time, no? Sige. Okay.
Sir,
Yes,
pasingit lang
interrupt
ulit.
anytime.
Hindi, kasi since may difference yung definition ng SLTs and ILTs, would this mean na we need to put then facilities for ILTs? Kasi parang yung funding nyo for SLTs lang So, paano yung ILTs?
Yung ILTs, since they are in the lowland, many times po ma'am, we tap all structures that would be rehabilitated into a training center.
So, meron din.
Mayroon
meron
siyang
din.
structure po, ma'am.
Baka you can submit to the committee
Also
yung
for that.
SLTs and ILTs.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, like, sa akin na yung tibuok ko. Lagyan nyo, meron akong tibuok sa So, for example, i-clarify lang natin yun, ha? Maybe si Chair Ino, Dr. Laya, si Chair Rio, si Prof. John, ipagsama-sama mga utak nila para maliwanag tayo. Kasi ang pagkaintindi ko, noon, baka mali ako, yung mga SLT gusto kong gawin ILT isa batas para yung kanilang preserbasyon at konserbasyon at proteksyon at tulong sa kanila ay sakop na. Ganun lang. Kasi pag lowland, like kami, nasa lowland yung ibang IPs, hindi, bumababa naman. Yung mga ATI, SLT ba yon o ILT? Iklaro lang natin yon, Ichu, ha? Oo. Anyway, sige. Kasi nga, sabi nga ni Chair Pia, wala tong katapusan. So, hinto muna ako sa NCCA, sa ibang ahensya ng gobyerno. Sige. Kasi nung naghihiring kami noon, 9 to 5. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. dati. Ayoko naman gawin sa'yo yon, di ba, dear? Okay. Oo. So, National Library. Ilan po si Director Adriano? Yes. Ikaw pa rin, no? Previous admin, ikaw na yon, di ba? Yes.
Kakaawa ng
very
Diyos,
good.
Madam Chair.
Sige, National Library. How many libraries or reading centers and whatever names you call it are under you all over the country?
Sa public libraries, Madam Chair, it is under the LGU. Ang mga public libraries.
Alam ko po yon. Ilan, just answer this. Yung sa inyo lang, yung dito sa Luneta, or do you have annex offices,
No, we have,
satellite, or mobile libraries? You had before, eh.
meron kaming,
1,650.
ang affiliated yan. Yung under sa atin, yung congressional.
Tatlo lang.
We have 3 congressional libraries, Madam Chair, na under sa admin ng National Library. But we have 1,500 plus affiliated public libraries. So, yun yung binibigyan namin ng mga library allocation, yung mga newly established public libraries.
Mahalagang sabihin. So, itong budget nyo para sa National Library sa inyo.
Yes, Madam
Then
Chair.
you have the congressional library. What are congressional libraries? Libraries in the district of
Yeah.
elected representatives,
Yes, Madam
correct?
Chair.
Congressional. Created by law or just funded by you?
Created by law, Madam Chair, and then under na siya sa supervision ng NLP.
I'm sorry?
Created by law, Madam Chair.
And the funding also comes from your organic funds.
Yes, Madam Chair. Actually, yun yung problem namin, Madam Chair. Kasi after ng establishment, pagkagawa ng batas, natayo yung building, but the MOE, hindi naman nadagdagan yung MOE ng...
I think they should amend it because
Correct.
enacted it by law. If 300 congressmen and 24 senators
Yes,
do the
Madam Chair.
national, paano na ang National Library, right? Unless the budget template increases so high. I mean, I don't even, yeah, so the congressional libraries. And the 1,500 affiliated are also part of your little funds. Hinahati, no? Hindi naman.
The newly established ones lang, Madam Chair. So, like for this year, meron kaming na-encourage na mga more or less mga 44 halo-halo na yun, municipal, city, provincial, and even barangay centers na nag-e-establish ng libraries nila. So, bibigyan namin sila ng initial allocation, Madam Chair, para meron silang pag-start. Then, after that, the LGU, sila na yung tutuloy.
So you're providing the capital outlay?
No,
And
no.
then, what do you say initial allocation?
Library materials only.
Free materials. Okay. Kindly give us all the libraries under you, affiliated with you, and then how we can help them. I have so much materials. I want to share it as well. I know this would interest my colleagues. We have the Rizal collection, right? In the National Library. What parts of the Rizal collection? Because the Rizal collection of many things, of reading materials, etc., are in different government agencies. What Rizal collection is housed in the NL?
The most famous ones, Madam Chair, is yung original manuscript ng El Filibusterismo at No Limitang Here. And then we have some drawings of Rizal also, mga letters, and most of it mga manuscripts, Madam Chair.
Are these already digitized?
Yes, Madam Chair.
The Philly?
Yeah.
Original Noli Fili.
Yeah.
Everything's digitized.
Yes, Madam
Oo.
Chair.
And the room, we haven't visited, maybe we should visit it someday, no? To see how it's not on archives or storage, it's displayed,
Yes.
right?
I will invite you November, Madam Chair, para kayo na rin mag-cut ng ribbon ng
Sige,
project
kaming
natin
tatlo.
doon.
Okay.
Yung permanent gallery.
Sige, naka-display naman siya, no? Pero
display natin doon sa project natin na permanent gallery. Yun na rin, doon talaga ilalagay yung
Oh,
mga
sige, pero
original
very secure
manuscript.
yan. Oh, sige. Do you, many years ago, not sure what term, but there were mobile libraries in indigent areas and maybe in informal settler areas. You still have that? No more? Or does it work at all o hindi?
No, Madam Chair. The idea, Madam Chair, is magbigay sana lang ng training si National Library at ang gagawa ng mga mobile libraries is yung mga public libraries na under ng LGU. Kasi sila naman, kasi kung gagawin ng NLP yun, hindi rin kami aabot ng Visayas and Mindanao. So, what we are doing right now is in-strengthen namin yung mga public libraries, binibigyan ng training kung ano yung mga dapat nilang gagawin sa kanilang mga areas, and then sila na rin ang gagawa noon, Madam Chair.
Do you have, as a national library, as an institution, a literacy program for the poorest of the poor to curb, if not totally eliminate, learning poverty? Since you are mandated to spread the knowledge in soft or hard copy form and to share information materials, is there such a program
Yes,
that
but
you can perhaps link with DepEd, among others?
yes, Madam Chair. Actually, it is part dun sa mga trainings na binibigay namin yung mga ganun.
Okay, training. Magsagawa kayo ng training, and then each senator's staff and the committees can join the training so that we can see and glean what kind of training you do.
Yes,
Diba?
Madam Chair.
Library science is so interesting eh. Nasaan ba si Baby? Ating librarian. May tinawag si Baby. Yeah. Okay. So, when is your next training? I'm sure Senator Binay and Senator Cayetano would want to have their staff attend. I'd like to have the staff attend.
Right now, Madam Chair, yung training namin nasa Zamboanga today until
How many
Friday.
days ang
The
training
next
nyo?
training namin is sa Legazpi, Albina.
Okay. Kindly do a training here in the Senate, or
Yes.
if you have a room in the National Library, that would just a half day or a whole day on a Friday pag wala kaming session.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Is that okay?
Actually, Madam Chair, yung library ng Senate, nag-training na sa amin last 2 months ago.
Ayun, very good. Sige, isama mo ang offices ng senators.
Okay, we'll do
At
that, Madam.
saka, hindi lang senators, but also the secretariat, isama ninyo. Not all representatives of each office.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes. Thank you. I have more questions, but I don't want to take up too much time. We now proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adriano. Now, September 15, what is it tonight? 11, 12? That's Friday. September 15 is the 125th anniversary of the Malolos Congress. Ayan, Dr. Calairo, yes. The run, that's so important. The run up, it's just 4 days away, 5 days away. I don't feel it. I don't see it. That's so important. The Malolos Congress, we had, how many were appointed by Emilio Aguinaldo? 50? 80? Ilan ba?
85 po, ma'am.
85. O, mali kayo 50. It's 85. Okay. I want accuracy. Wala akong nakikita. Maski gumawa kayo ng something. You were supposed to have an exhibit here, right? For Monday. Para may basic information naman. Ano yung Malolos Congress, sino-sino, sino yung appointed, sino yung elected, right? Oo, Historical Commission. And then, we want you hold the press conference even virtual so that the media will talk about the Malolos Congress. Ano ba ang mga naipasang resolution or paano ko lang batas? Wouldn't that be so, ako lang ba na-excite dito? Kasi sayang eh. Diba? It's 125th and there's no noise. It should be big. That's why when we went to San Agustin in Baliwag, Bulacan, I told them, by Monday ha? By Monday, okay, kaming tatlo magkakat ng ribbon. We will have an exhibit of the Malolos Congress and archival photos. So when I say this, it's not just NHCP, it's a whole of NCCA approach, meaning Chair Ino, as an archivist specialist, among many other things, will help. So whatever archives can help to whatever National Library can help, pagandahan naman nyo. Gandahan nyo. Tapos kaming tatlo, imbitahin nyo doon next Monday to cut the ribbon, okay?
Sen Lauren, siguro just an intervention. di ba NHCP, kayo yung nagmamanage ng museum dun sa
Yes, Senator.
Malolos?
Kami po.
Naayos na ho yung parang light and sound dun. Di ba parang may interactive, ano bang tawag dun sa gano'ng exhibit? Yung parang replica nung
Light and sound, ma'am.
parang
No?
light and sound. Naayos.
Actually, ma'am, hindi pa po siya naaayos. Nakaprogram po sa amin na
Ngayon sana
4 phases.
for the 125th yung in Malolos. Meron silang museum dun sa Malolos. Maganda. You should
Napuntahan sound.
meron sa loob na loob. Yeah, you have to go inside. No. So hindi pa ho siya naayos. Pero meron ho ang budget.
Wala po.
Talaga
Actually,
siya
part po ng aming actually pinapropose yung rehabilitation ng museums.
Sama
Included
na ho
sila.
yung sa Malolos.
Opo.
Sayang, sana pala na bigyan natin ng budget for this year since
Rehabilitation.
Sa rehab ng mga museums po namin.
sa pasok dun sa 125th.
You should have highlighted it, no? Kasi naalala niyo yung sa Cebu Mactan, sa NHCP din yun, di ba? O, inano yun kinarir niyo yun You have to highlight it so that we know and we can also fight for it. So kung hindi kayo magsasabi, kasama lang sa maraming listahan, I always ask what is the priority. So kung hindi nyo highlight yun, hindi ko rin makikita na yun yung pinaka-importante sa inyo. Di ba? Yung kahabol pa tayo.
Chairperson
ngayon.
Awal, kasi dun sa NHCP, nagkaroon din para ng transition period
Yeah.
Diba?
Secretariat doesn't change, di ba? So dapat naman, kayo pa rin dapat
Or dapat nga pag mga ganong events, mga 3 years before that
Exactly.
event.
Actually nga,
yung 500
kahit
years.
10-year program para nakikita na natin, di ba?
Sa kanila, ayan, buti binanggit mo. Magbigay kayo po, hindi lang ng year-to-year projects that you want or wish list. At least if there's a PDP for the economy, for trade, for diplomacy, agriculture, finance, and you're part of it actually, you're part of the PDP, but let's have our own focused till 2028. Please, okay? Submit it to the chair and our offices, please. Okay. So, Chair, Senator P is correct. I remember it was during the pandemic. I was even Congresswoman of Antique, but I would join with the 500 years, right? We would have that. You were vice chair then of Dr. Pangalan niya?
No, ma'am.
Escalante.
Hindi po. I'm just a member of the board.
You're a member of the board then. We had that very active on Zoom. Ewan ko, COVID noon naka-Zoom noon. Oo. Pero medyo may ingay. Ito, imagine Malolos Congress, napakahalaga. Alam mo, hindi masamang after September 15. September 15 hanggang end of the year, anyway, taong ito, ginanap yung Malolos Congress, okay? Alam kong wala sa inyong year budget, meron naman kayong dyan pagkukunan na may konting pwedeng flexible, di ba? Kung hindi, personal naming tutulungan kayo basta realistic. Magsimula tayo sa maganda yung exhibit dito, tapos pwedeng maging roving exhibit yan sa iba-ibang lugar, maski Metro Manila. Sana lahat ng LGUs sa Metro Manila, I'm sure Taguig City would want, Makati would like to have their own exhibits on the 125th year. Ganun lang, I'll talk to the other mayors sa Malabon, sa amin, di ba? Sa mga koridor nila. Para pati yung nagkatrabaho doon, nagka-type, o pati tricycle driver na papasok, yung taho vendor, makita, ganun. Tapos, kailangan LGU Bulacan. Meron kayo something. Meron.
Actually, ma'am, meron po kami mga collaboration sa LGU. Sa kami mismo museums namin, meron din sila mga local activities.
Tapos ang National Museum, it's not too late kung wala pa to have an exhibit, no matter how modest, but it's important, the historical aspect. Let's have, kay Jeremy, let's have something, the exhibit here, tingnan natin kung gaano kaganda. Many years ago, I remember, Chair Ino, when he was head of archives, and you've been head of archives for the longest time, maybe second or third term, we have the beautiful exhibit here of archival materials nasa inyo, di ba? You can repeat that, Kasi nakalimutan ng tao yung 207 yata yun, 15 years ago. Basta,
We're doing an archival exhibit on the di ba
yung archival exhibit nyo,
on
part of the
on
NHCP.
the 7 operation centers of the revolution
Mm,
of the revolutionary government.
okay. Okay, Madam Chair. So I wanted that exhibit sana in the Senate and
We can
other
do it also
areas.
on the
Tumulong kayo sa NHCP, anong materyales ang inyong mga
We
ahensya
can
na
do
akma
a exhibit
sa kanila
here in
for the
Senate.
Malolos 125 years. Okay. Okay. So, Santa Ana Church. Is Santa Ana Church designated as a cultural treasure, a historical landmark? What is it, or nothing yet?
I think it's a national cultural treasure
National Cultural Treasure, which is under National Museum. No.
under NCCA.
Under NCCA. The National Cultural Treasure is under NCCA. Can I just turn over to you the requests of some residents there, because I would not be in a position to judge on certain improvements or rehabilitation or construction in that district. I'm not sure how it is. Can I turn it over to you, since the church would be in that district or that vicinity where the construction is? So I'll just turn over to Chair Ino yung mga request ng residente over the building that's being done there. Okay, so I asked National Library about a digitization, not just of the Rizal Noli Fili, of all your books. Parang imposible yata i-digitize lahat yan, or nagawa kaya nyo?
Madam Chair, ano yun? Ang digitization is part talaga ng day-to-day trabaho ng NLP. So, habang may binibili kami, hindi talaga siya rin mauubos. So, ongoing.
Digitization is already organic in your budget. You don't have to ask extra. And every day, you keep on digitizing all your materials.
Yes, Madam Chair, but the next year for 2025, ang i-request ko yung mga bago ng mga gamit, Madam Chair, na hindi na kailangan na halos ng intervention ng tao. Yung mga bagong mga produkto ngayon na nasa market, which is hindi ko hiningi ngayon para pag natapos for the next year, yun yung...
The digitization, when I ask about that, does not only apply to them. Of course, archives kay Chair Ino.
Yes.
Are you also digitizing? Are you also digitizing in NHCP lahat ng inyong documentation? Okay. How many museums are under you, NHCP, all over the country?
29, ma'am.
29. And they're part of your organic budget.
Yes, ma'am.
And these are maintained, they're well done, walang nagsara during COVID that you've not reopened. Bumalik na tayo.
Yes, ma'am. Still maintained po siya. But right now, we are assessing it para dun sa maintenance, no, evaluation, para makita namin yung effectivity talaga nung pagkakaroon ng isang museum sa isang lugar.
29.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
many more museums, if you had the resources, would you want to open? Or how do you decide where you have an NHCP museum? Of course, where there is a historical milestone in our history, right? Oo. So how many more?
But actually, ma'am, basically sana yung representation ng iba't ibang regions natin ay meron. No? So in the future, we are eyeing for museums in the south, no, kasi medyo mahina kami sa southern part, no, sa Mindanao. Kaya lang we're still assessing our capability. That's why we're looking for programs, baka pwedeng mga LGU ang mag-establish technical assistance kami, no, then we have the supervisory thing.
Since you have the mandate, I would suggest that you do it. Ganito, gawin din nyo yung, kung if you had the resources, ilan ang gusto nyo. Iintayin yung LGU. Some may be interested but may not have the resources. The others may not be interested at all or use their kulang na ang funds sila for healthcare and other things. Museum pa. Pero iba, marami rin may interest. Kayo na ang mag-isip tapos ilagay nyo yung... And hindi kailangan ng build, di ba? Marami naman dyan government structures or perhaps old buildings that you can just do adaptive reuse or rehabilitate or just dumowa. Wag build ng bago, no? Pwede yun. Then give us a list of your 29 and just exterior photos and just maybe 2 lines description of what it contains. If I were to bring a student, what would be the first museum under NHCP you would recommend na pinagmamalaki yung maganda, malapit sa Maynila, sa mga bata?
Well, ang pinakamalapit po itong ating Fort Santiago sa Rizal Museum. So it's very near and meron din po siya mga collections na maganda.
Yung sa Fort Santiago nyo, bago lang ito o yun yung dati pa? It's the same old Rizal or did you include new acquisitions?
Meron po tayong kasi renovated na siya. Meron siyang mga include new acquisitions.
I would like to visit. Ito po, I'm sure this would interest my colleagues. Yung kama na hinigaan niya, yung kanyang writing desk, at yung cabinet niya na galing sa Wilhelmsfeld na linagay sa Frankfurt Consulate General's Office nung pandemic nandun. Nauwi na ba dito at nandyan na nakadisplay? Baka naka-storage. Saan yun? Galing kay, sino yun? Si Dr. Matanda? Yung doktor? Dr. Matanda, baka namatay na yun. Ulmer. Kay Ulmer. Off the record yung matanda. Baka maintindihan. Yeah. So, Dr. Ulmer, who is the grandson of Pastor Ulmer. He was a child when Pastor Ulmer took in a young Jose Rizal who was studying ophthalmology in a hospital in Heidelberg. Why did he not live in Heidelberg? Because mahal ang living status condition. So nakitira sa pastor sa Wilhelmsfeld, isang baryo nearby town. And sabi nila, yun daw, sabi ng Ulmer family, ang mga gamit niya. Nasa inyo na ba? Kasi forever sinasabi, ibibigay. Baka mamaya, sa panahon ng COVID, nakita ko pa yun ng 2019 bago mag-lockdown eh. O, nabigay na ba?
Yes ma'am, naka-display na po sa Fort Santiago po.
Lahat.
Yes ma'am.
Hindi, may naiwan. Tawagan mo ang Frankfurt. Yung congen. May naiwan doon. Marami yun eh. May kama, may desk. Sigurado kayo lahat binigay na?
But we'll check
Inventaryohin nyo.
po. Apa.
Inventaryohin nyo kasi maski isang pirasong naiwan o mawala, di ba? Rizal yun eh. Nakita ko yon bago mag-lockdown. Tapos, kailan inuwi? Ngayon lang, 2022, after lockdown.
Yung mga nasa atin.
Baka kasi ganito
Kaya pandemic
para
po,
lang
ma'am.
Ay, hindi nga. Kaya nga, ito para lang maliwanag. Kasi yung Ulmer family, maraming dinodonate. Iba kasama pa si Miss Gemma na apo ni Rizal, nandun siya. Hindi yon. Ito ay naka-display. Nakita po sa consulate 2019, tas nag-lockdown. Kailang inuwi, hindi ko alam yun, hindi ko namalayan. 2022, tas dinisplay nyo ngayon, 2023, parang hindi ko yata alam yun. Baka nga nandun pa.
Yung pama.
Sumasagot.
Yes ma'am, we will look into it ma'am. Kasi meron din tayong contact kay Rainer Weber.
Check nyo. Tawagan mo yung Consul General, si Banson, ng Frankfurt. Naka-display yun doon. Baka malihis. Tapos, hindi makarating ng Pilipinas o sa ahensya nyo. Saan mapunta yun? Baka, hindi mo alam. Basta. Sige. These are the Rizal. It'd be beautiful to have a Rizal exhibit, Chair Ino. Let's say, the Noli Fili original, but it's so scary to take it out. And then, all the furniture used by Rizal while writing the Noli Fili. What did he write? What did he write in Heidelberg and Wilhelmsfeld? Is it a Noli or the Fili? The Fili. Fili, no?
Di Noli ma'am, sa Heidelberg pa siya. Kasi
Noli
yung sa film, na-publish na siya sa Belgium.
Noli in Germany.
Okay.
Okay.
Ano pa yung Las Flores do Heidelberg, definitely.
Las Flores de Heidelberg
Apa.
by the Neckar River in Heidelberg.
Yes, ma'am.
Iba yon, yeah. Okay. So, paki-check lang po yung sayang naman yon. Okay. So, I can go on and on with NHCP, but kindly submit to the committee and to the two other senators, our offices, the list of your 29 and the status and photos so that we can identify. And itong hihilingin ko sa inyo, not just the NHCP museums, but also the NCCA. No, you don't have museums, but the NCCA, NCT's National Cultural Treasures and the museums under National Museum. Give us the list. Because we know it by heart, but give us the list and give it please to the office OPCD, the DFA. they keep on, whenever with visitors, let's make it part of the itinerary of visitors so that they go to the National Museum, for example. Not just the biodiversity, but let's say the Gamaba, so they understand what the Manlilikanang Bayan Award is. You know, they, yes, they send sometimes when the visitors to the private museums, that's fine, but they should see the government museums as well. That's why when I asked you, ano kaya ang pinakamagandang puntahan, gawin natin standard, hindi lang sa bisitang dayuhan, sa mga eskwelahan, o yung Rizal sa Fort Santiago, o number 2, anong next na maganda?
Kami po Presidential Car Museum sa Quezon Circle, sa new one. At
Quezon
very
Circle.
popular po siya ngayon.
At kotse.
Presidential Car Museum.
Hindi tayo mahilig sa kotse. Kung pinagkastos ng kotse. Anong kaninong kotse ng mga pangulo?
Yes, ma'am.
Kaninong project yun? Hindi sa amin tatlo yun.
NHCP initiated po siya. At
Hindi. Hindi kami hilig sa kotse. O sige na, di ba? Oo. Bayaan mo na.
Pandemic.
pre-pandemic daw, ma'am.
2018.
2018.
Ano ko nun? Bayaan mo na. O sige na. Magkano ang ginastos ng mga kotse niyan? Oo nga, pero alam ko yung 3 administrations ago. Di bali na yun. Sige. What was I saying? So, ano po, paki-transmit sa amin, sa committee at sa amin, at ikalap po ninyo ang sulat nyo sa kay SFA, si Chair Inog yun, naka-copy furnish si OPCD para alam nila yung dadalhin nila. Tapos, sumulat din kayo kay DepEd, kay VP Sara, tapos isisi nyo kami ng communications nyo para alam namin na para yung mga estudyante sa DepEd schools, pati pribadong sektor, mapuntahan. Oo, libre yan libre. Ha? Sayang. Tapos pati Senate, para ang aming mga tanggapan, although kami, I just wanted to mention this to my colleagues, call it crazy. Mandatory for them to go to National Museum, then write a 1-page report. That's before you're employed in my office, and give a 1-page report to my office, right? Including the drivers and messengers, ha? Oh, and then they bring their children. Libre naman Para gusto ko makita ang kanilang pananaw sa ating kasaysayan at kultura. Oo. At you'd be surprised. Even the drivers, messengers, everyone. Oo. Ganon. Yeah. Oo. So, imbitahin natin lahat ng committee secretary, tas lahat nandito, libre naman Hindi lang sa National Museum, kundi rin sa mga NHCP na mga museo. Libre. Dapat libre. Oh, libre. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, no, just before you move on to another agency, just a reminder to all, I forgot to mention it in the beginning, but di ba ang priority natin every year, at least as I chair, is the preservation and the security of your of all the assets under your care. So we have to prioritize that because nandiyan di ba? So when you give us a wish list, don't forget to highlight that kasi my staff just reminded me na NHCP informed us that you don't have enough funds for upgrade, maintenance, utilities, and security of the 29 museum. So it's my priority na i-secure yon. Diba? Before tayo mag-move on. Although I do believe in short-term and long-term projects. So hindi naman ibig sabihin na hindi bibigyan yung mga bagong project. Pero kailangan kong ma-secure yon. Okay? As National Library knows very well. Okay, yun lang naman.
Hindi, siguro just to add dun sa point mo, Madam Chair, lalong-lalo na yung nangyari sa Manila Post Office. Kasama ba dun sa security nyo yung how fire ready or calamity ready yung mga museums natin?
Would you want a update on what's happening with the post office? We prepared one. Well, we put up an interagency committee as an ad hoc committee to address it, but we're expecting that the president will have his own committee. so far, so have several meetings of the interagency committee. This includes the cultural agencies, the selected cultural agencies, plus DOT and the City of Manila. And right now, the situation is that it's been assessed, and they have requested for funding from the TIESA for the initial intervention, so that it doesn't, for example, deteriorate further. And that's where we are now, right now. I just want to say that also we've been able to retrieve some pieces of the stamp collection of the Philippine Republic. There were a few, very few, but there were some that were saved.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for that information, Chair Ino. I think that the Senate President also created a committee. Parang ganun eh. Oo. Ako pala. Kindly give us your update on the interagency and the executive side, and let me just have an organizational meeting of
We'll
that
do that, ma'am.
Senate
Yes, ma'am.
committee. Thank you very much. Now, KWF, yes. Ilan ba talaga po ang ating salita, wika, languages? Because pagkausap natin ng gobyerno, ilan ang sabi nyo? 133?
135 po ngayon,
135.
kasama ang Filipino Sign Language.
Okay. 135
Opo.
kasama ang sign language.
Opo.
Pag hindi po ang sign language, ilan po?
134.
Isa
Ang
lang
opisyal na
considered
bilang.
ang opisyal. Pero pagkausapin niyo po ang SIL, Summer Institute of Linguistics, mas marami sa 135. 180 yata.
Okay. Kasi po ay may ibang sistema o pamaraan sila ng pagkuha ng mga ng bilang ng mga wika sa ating bansa. Ang halimbawa po ay may mga wika po na itinuturing ng Komisyon sa Wikang Pilipino na mga variety lamang ng isang wika. Marahil po ay iyon ang dahilan kung bakit lumalaki ang bilang ng ibang mga institusyon kung ang pag-uusapan ay ang kabuuang bilang ng mga wika sa ating bansa. Dahil dapat po nating unawain na ang mga katawagang wika at dialekto ay magkaiba po. Ang halimbawa po, ang Tagalog ay isang wika na may maraming variety o tinatawag na nating dialekto. May Tagalog Bulacan, Tagalog Rizal, Tagalog Cavite, Tagalog Batangas, Tagalog Marinduque, Tagalog Mindoro, Tagalog iba pa. At marahil po kasi ang pagbilang nila ay naiiba. Halimbawa, pagpupunta po tayo sa Mindanao, marami po ang mga variety ng Binasayang Cebuano na marahil ay isinasama nila sa kabuong bilang nila. Ang amin po kami sa amin po kami sa Komisyon sa Wikang Pilipino ay magkaiba po 'yon, kaya pag sinabi po na nating bilang ng wika, ito po yung mga wika. At hindi po namin isinasama yung dialekto at natawag nating variety ng isang wika. Dumarami po ang bilang dahil sa mga variety o dialekto.
Ito po ay ayon lang sa pag-define ng language and dialect.
Opo.
Pero kung titignan mo, yun din ang numero. Iba lang ang pag-define kaya lumalawak ang numero nila. Ganun ba yun? Or meron ba tayong hindi alam na language na alam nila na dapat buhayin?
Hindi po, kasi kami po ay may mga sariling pananaliksik at ito pong aming mga pananaliksik ay patuluyan. Kung kaya't ang sinasabi ko lamang po dito, ang Komisyon sa Wikang Pilipino po ang may katungkulan, may mandato na magsagawa po ng mga ulat na ganito dahil kami po ang opisyal na ahensya na nagsasakatuparan po ng pagbilang at paggawa ng mga pananaliksik hinggil sa wika.
Okay.
Ang SIL po kasi ay may ibang layunin
Oo.
at hindi po namin gustong ikumpara ang resulta ng kanilang mga pananaliksik sa aming pananaliksik.
Just so that it's clear, simplihan po natin. Paano ang ating pagkakaiba? How do you, Inglesin ko, how do you differentiate a language and a dialect? Just so that it's sure. Because many people still interchangeably use dialects and language. And I know that there are sensitivities. There are people, not just indigenous persons, but groups who feel offended when you call their language a dialect.
Po.
Yes.
Ang kaibahan po kasi ng katawagang dialekto ay may kaugnayan po sa maaaring panlipunan at geographical na katangian. At hindi po natin kalimitan po ang pagkakaiba lamang ng isang dialekto sa inang wika nito ay yung pagkakaroon halimbawa po ng punto o accent o maaari pong bahagyang pagkakaiba sa balarila o grammar ng isang wika. Maaari din pong ito ay dahil sa bokabularyo. Halimbawa po, sa Cavite at ilan pang katabing mga lalawigan ay may kakaibang balarila po na naiiba po sa yung tinatawag nating lingua franca na Tagalog dito po sa Kalakang, Maynila. Halimbawa po ng grammar na yun, nakain ka ba ng pating? Nakain ka ba ng pating? Ang ibig ang ibig po sabihin ay nakakain ka ba ng pating o kumakain ka ba ng pating? So iba po ang may kaibahan sa balarila ng ating pong itinuturing na standard na Filipino. Okay?
So what would you call the language?
Ito po yung
No, ano nga ang language which is the dialect? So the language is Tagalog and the dialect is what is it called?
ang mga dialects.
Sample lang para operationalize natin yung konsepto.
Tulad na nabanggit ko po kanina, Tagalog Cavite ay dialekto kasi Tagalog po siya na may kaunting kaibahan lamang
So in
po.
this case, sorry to interrupt, Tagalog is the language.
Opo.
And Tagalog Cavite, Tagalog Batangas, Tagalog Bulacan is the dialect.
Tama po.
Okay. When do you correctly use Filipino?
Ano po ulit?
When do you correctly use Filipino as a language?
Ang atin pong sa kasaysayan, batid po naman na marami, ang wikang pambansa po natin ay ibinatay sa wikang Tagalog at simula po ito noong unang panahon, maging nung panahon ng Malolos Constitution hanggang sa kasalukuyan na nagbago-bago ng katawagan. So Tagalog po ang batayan ng wikang pambansa noon na pagsapit po ng Saligang Batas 1973 ay tinawag po itong Filipino, Opo. Batid po naman natin na ang Pilipino ay Tagalog pa rin kasi ang mga pinag-aralan po natin sa aking panahon ay talaga po naman Tagalog yung Pilipino noong unang panahon. Dahil ang lahat ng katangian ng wikang Tagalog, ayun po ang pinag-aaralan at tinutukoy na wikang Pilipino. Pagsapit po ng Saligang Batas 1987, ito po ay tinawag na pong Filipino. Ito po ay upang bigyang daan ang konsepto ng tinatawag nating pagiging inklusibo dahil ang wikang Filipino po ay nililinang at batay po
Maliwanag po.
sa iba pang mga
Okay.
katutubong wika sa ating bansa.
Sa 135 po ninyo na 134 ang languages at yung isa yung sign language, ano po ang nakatalaga sa inyo? Tagalog, Pilipino o Filipino? Ano po ang pangalan na nakalagay
Ang
dito?
tawag po ng Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino ng ating wikang pambansa ay Filipino, F. At yan po ay may definisyon sa Saligang Batas ng 1987 at maging ang Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino ay nagkaroon po ng mas malawak na kahulugan ang wikang Filipino na atin pong sumasailalim po sa tinatawag nating estandardisasyon at
Okay.
intelektualisasyon.
So, Filipino as a language is i-Englishin ko na po, no? Is one of the 135 languages. Right? Okay. Is that clear?
Opo.
Filipino as a language is one of the 135 languages.
Opo.
and the nuances of Filipino dialects are numerous.
Opo.
Okay, marami. Tagalog, yun nga,
Opo.
when you say Tagalog Cavite, that's Filipino Cavite, right?
Tagalog Cavite po.
Tagalog Cavite would fall under Filipino as a language? No. No, because you said, okay, my question was, of the 135 languages, what is it called in your list? Is it Tagalog or Filipino? And you answered me as Filipino. Therefore, that's just one line. Hindi naman iba ang Tagalog sa Filipino because it evolved into what it's called, right? So does it mean because it's one of 135 that the dialects you mentioned under Tagalog are the same dialects we call under Filipino? Would that be different?
Ang salitang Filipino nga po, ang ating wikang pambansa ay nililinang natin na alam po natin naroon po yung batayan ang Tagalog. Pero iba na po ang ating
O sige,
konsepto ng
pupunta lang
Filipino
kami
ngayon.
kasi baka ikokonsulta ko rin si Cherio Almario, baka iba din ang kanyang paningin dyan.
Po.
Oo, wag na. Sige, mahabang usapin ito. Mahabang usapin. At tatanong ko si Cherio, hindi nyo alam. I'm sure marami kayong alam. Pero para lang sigurado, kasi lang, marami pong nagkakamali ang gamit at may sense, hindi baling, mali.
Ang
Dapat matuto.
Kagalang-galang na senadora, ang sinasabi ko lang po dito, nasa kasalukuyan, ang konsepto ng Tagalog at Filipino ay magkaiba na po.
Mag-iba nga. Yes, we know iba po. Kaya nga tinatanong ko sa inyo, sa 135 nyo, anong tawag nyo?
Ito po, itong mga katutubong wika nga po ay
No, my
konglomerasyon ng...
Submit the 135.
Opo.
Please submit the 135. I want to see what is it called officially under the commission.
Opo.
Yes.
Isusumite po namin.
And I want to understand if you call Tagalog, Filipino, according to the Constitution, it's in one line. Or is it Filipino, then Tagalog is different? I want to understand that.
Apa.
Right? Oo. Okay.
Meron po kami nakahandang
Sige.
dokumentasyon.
Remember, I don't know if you were already in the commission, we had language markers, yung bantayog wika. Napakahalaga ng wika. Dahil pag mamatay ang isang wika, maski maliit pong grupo ng tao, paano na sila mag-communicate? Hindi ba? So, ito ba'y pinapagpatuloy nyo? Again, just like SLTs and ILTs, are we continuing the preservation, documentation, protection, at pagpalaganap ng kaalaman tungkol sa wika natin?
Nais ko pong iulat na noong nakaraang 2 linggo lamang nga po ay nagpasanyaya kami ng Bantayog Wika. Nagkaroon kami ng pagpasinaya sa Tanawan, Leyte para sa Wikang Waray. At itong nakaraang linggo ay galing po kami sa Mindanao State University, Lungsod Marawi para po sa Bantayog ng Wikang Maranao. Ito po ay nagpapahiwatig lamang na ipinagpapatuloy po namin ang pagtatayo ng mga bantayog wika sa iba't ibang bansa at inaasahan po namin na sa susunod na mga taon ay ipagpapatuloy po namin ito at ito po ay nangangailangan ng isang malaking budget po dahil ang amin pong huling 4 na bantayog ay nagsimula ng 2021 na may budget na 10 milyon at ito po ngayon ay medyo wala na, ngunit meron po kaming isusunod na pagpapasinaya na gagawin po sa WMSU sa Zamboanga, Lungsod Zamboanga.
Mag-report na kayo. Ilan po ang total, I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. Ilan ang total nyo na nagawa na bantayog wika? Ito ba yung isang disenyo lang, yung kay Juni, right?
Okay.
Isang
Ang bilang
ba?
po ng mga natayo na bantayog wika 128.
Ilan na ang natayo?
At 28 pala po, I'm sorry.
Imposibleng 100.
Sorry, pasensya po. 28 lamang.
At 28 pa lang ang natayo.
Apo.
Ito pa yung amendment ko noon, ngayon lang nyo ginagamit? Or nagkusa na kayo sa organic funds nyo?
Yun pa rin po. Parehas pa rin po.
Naka-4th term na ako, yung pa rin yung pondo ng 3rd term. Hindi pa nyo
At wala po
tinatapos.
talagang nadagdag kasi
Ubusin na nyo yung pondo. Paano yun hindi
yung galing po kasi sa NCCA na ay natapos na po noong 2020.
Mag-report na lang po kayo yung 28. Tapos sana po, di ba, may coordination kayo sa LGU. Aalagaan naman yung lugar. Baka mamaya, nagtayo tayong maganda dyan.
May
Tapos,
kasama po.
talahib-talahib. Tapos baka mamaya, may gagawing kalsada, pugutan ng ulo yung bantayog note.
Kagalang-galang na senadora, meron pong kontrata ang mga
Oo.
LGU.
Hindi mo alam.
Kaya na sila po ay
Sige.
mag-aasikaso,
Bigyan
aasikasuhin.
nyo kami ng report ng letrato ng bawat isa sa 28. Tapos, ganito po. Sumulat po kayo sana, isisi nyo kami na sa local tourism officer ng 28. Di ba ang ganda? Alam ni Pia to. May walking tour mula sa Bantayog Wika. Ayan, yan kami, magsimula. Pero mabilis maglakad dito, hindi ko kaya. So, pumili kayo ng Bantayog Wika na, siya run, kami walk. Ako stroll. Okay. So, siya run, siya walk, ako stroll. Anyway, pumili kayo ng Bantayog Wika kung gusto na ako samahan. So, una, mag-report kayo sa 28. Tapos, ano yung pag gusto nyong lagyan? Lahat na. Kailangan lagyan na.
Meron po kaming mga
Hindi pa ako tapos.
Sorry po.
So, yung 28 po na report, may photo. Ano yung language? At yung background ng language. At dapat talaga pangalagaan ng LGU, tino-turn over nyo, di ba? Oo. Tapos, mag-coordinate ka sa local tourism office. Let's say, Batangas City. Di yung mayor. Tapos mag-develop sila ng local tours na walking. No, Pia? Oo, let's say, yun nakalagay dyan. Anong katabi niya? Kasi silang nag-locate yun. Siguro may lumang bahay doon. Ano yung lumang bahay ang ibig sabihin? At saka maski na mawala, sabi mo na hindi maganda ang itsura at hindi siya heritage area. Okay lang. So, mag-walk ng ilan, tas yung local tourism officer o mag-train siya, capacity building ng mga teachers, pag weekends o kabataan, para ipaliwanag yung kahalagahan, basic information of that language. Would that not be so interesting? Do we have a Bantayog Wika in Metro Manila?
Sa Pasig po, meron.
Ayun, ang ganda mag-walking tour doon o magpunta. Meron ba sa Malabon ko? Malabon? Patingin. O Makati, o Taguig, o Pateros.
Sa Makati, Patagig po, wala pa po.
Gusto ni Senator Binay, mag-walking tour kayo sa Makati. Meron?
Sige
Makati? Adyan? No,
Wala pa po sa
kala ko meron. Hindi kasi...
Baka gusto niyo yung ponduhan para magtayo tayo ng bantayog sa...
Remember, okay, let's not, it's funny but it's not funny because this is not a congressional insertion. Ibig sabihin, it's not kung anong gusto namin. It is kung saan galing yung language. Remember that. It's not if a congressman or senator says, I want it in here. No! It should be kung saan nagsimula yung wika. Doon linalagay. Tama? Hindi namin request yan. Hindi parang DepEd school na gusto namin dito maglagay. Hindi ganun yon.
Tama po.
So, your how many languages do we have?
134 po. Kasama ang FSL 135.
So, you should set up 135 language markers, Bantayog Wika, and you only 28. Oo. Tapos, maganda po. So, i-report po niyo yung 28, yung balanse saan, at saan po nagsimula, yung ibang wala pa, para alam natin, at dapat nakikipag-ugnayan na po ang inyong tanggapan sa lahat ng LGU, sigurado mo na papayag sila. Tapos, makipag-link kayo sa LGU Tourism Officer at magmungkahin na rin kayo sa DOT para mag-develop ng template ng simpleng walking tour. I'm sure Senpia would have her inputs for a nice 30 minutes lang, 1 hour, mahaba na yun. Di ang ganda.
If I may, actually, my input would be, sama-sama ng cultural agencies, no? So even though the marker, in some cases, the marker could be yung sa wika, bantayog ng wika, pero sa iba naman lugar na wala kang ganon, then yung landmark mo naman doon could be a famous person there or a famous infrastructure. Tapos i-tie up yun na lang lahat, no? So, yun.
Yes. Sure. Thank you for that. So, yung Bantayog Wika, isa lamang yon. Pero, gawin din natin yan, nanganganak na, sa lahat ng 29, 28 museums. Gawin din natin sa lahat ng NCT. Ilan ba ang National Cultural Treasures ng NCCA na talaga? Ilan na ang nagawa nyo? from the beginning of time. I'm sure. If you don't have it, sige, you can also have little tours. Even go around the place. I mean, have walking. It's healthy and it's good for the mind and education. And this is free. So we want you, please, to submit your own, let's call it walking knowledge tours on your respective agencies, starting with the 28 wika. And then also please include sa 135, ano na ang na-document nyo. Huwag nyo sabihin, wala, mahihimatay ako. Dapat na-document na nyo ang marami dyan. Kasi I found that in the past years. Anong klaseng documentation?
Bahagi po ng mga patuluyang programa ng Komisyon sa Wikang
Yeah, but you
Pilipino
have,
ang dokumentasyon at narito rin po sa aming proposal ang bahaging yan ng aming patuluyang proyekto at yung sinasabi po natin na mga wika na ortografiya ay pinagpapatuloy po namin kasi mahalaga po yung ortografiya na yan at meron po kaming website. Yan pong atlas ng wika na yan na inyo po sa tingin ko, sa pagkakabatid ko, inisyatiba po ninyo nung unang panahon, ay ginagawa po ang revision ngayon dahil nadagdagan na po ang bilang ng wika. Lalabas na po yan. 2024 po, kasi nire-revisa ngayon, lalabas na ho ang bagong atlas ng mga wika sa Pilipinas.
In the meantime, please reproduce kasi wala na to. I'll give one copy.
2024 po, lalabas yung bago.
Next January. O sige.
Opo.
Kompleto na.
Opo.
Pero dapat po, sakop kung anong nandito, panahon to ni Cherio Almario.
Opo. Sakop po talaga.
Dagdag lang nyo yung bago nyong tuklas.
Opo.
Ano ibig sabihin? Hindi nasama dito yung iba? O hindi pa natuklasan yung wika? Hindi naman siguro yun.
Hindi pa ho nagawa ng mga pananaliksik kaya ina-update ngayon kasi
Sige.
tulad na nabanggit ko po kanina, ang bilang po natin ngayon na opisyal ay 134. At yung atlas na po yan ay may nakatala lamang na 130 kung maalaala nyo.
Ito po. Ilan po ito?
130 ang pagkakaalala ko.
O check nyo. I-upload naman po ninyo. Thank you, dear. I-upload naman nyo sa website ninyo online. Ito.
Narayan po sa website po yan.
Ito. O, sige.
Wika at kultura at bawat wika po ay may mga description.
Sige. May soft copy niyan, syempre.
Meron
May
po.
hard copy. Ibigay po nyo sa 3 naming tanggapan. At pagsisikapin namin, ilagay sa aming website at social media platform ang access po ng atlas. Kasi hindi naman pwede print ng print. Ilang naman kaya natin print. Ang bigat-bigat pang dalin na ganun.
Maraming salamat po.
Online po natin.
Opo.
Tapos sa report po ninyo sa chair at sa aming po, 3, ay ilan po sa 135 ang na-document nyo. When you say na-document, ano ba ito? Tape recorder? Audio lang? Ano ba ho ito? Naka-video? Audio? Ano ba ito? Naka-soft copy written form? And how is it stored? Is it stored in a USB, in a hard drive, or in cloud? Paano? And where is it stored? Is it stored? Where is it?
Okay. Patuloy po ang aming pananaliksik at
Ayoko po yung
may cloud
sabihin
na po. Nasa cloud po
Yun,
siya.
ayoko yung patuloy. At kasi gusto namin malaman yung totoong na document po, ha?
Nasa cloud po.
Okay. Last tanong sa inyo. Ano po, ilan pong wika ang namatay na po? Or hindi na natin alam na nandyan? Ano po, taon-taon may sinasabi sa akin na isla sa Region 8 sa Samar
Okay.
nang nagsasalita ang mga tao na wala na yung wikang yon. Ano nga ba ulit yung isla? Ano bang lugar sa Samar? Is it Western, Eastern Samar? I'm sure alam to ni Chair Ino kasi we always talk about it every year.
Okay.
Nawala na ba talaga? Magpadala kayo ng tao bukas.
Okay.
At kausapin yung mga tao. Kasi every race, they always say, it's dying,
Okay.
wala na nagsalita. Di padala ng tao. I-document na nyo yung salita
Ano pa-
nila.
opo.
Sino po?
Ganito po yan. Noong mga 5 taon na nakalilipas, may ulat po na may 4 na pong mga wika na nanganganib maglaho. At itong huling pag-uulat ay 5 po sa 4 na po ay tuluyan ng naglaho. Kung kaya't may nalalabi pa hong 35 nanganganib maglaho. Kailangan po naming talagang
Teka.
alagaan ng mga ito.
Ano yung 5 na namatay.
Ito po yung limang mga
Limang
wikang
naglaho.
naglaho na. Ay Tatayabas,
Teka, saan po yan?
sa Quezon po. Inagta, Isarog, right? Sa
Saan po yun?
Bicol po.
Bicol. Oh.
Katabaga, saan na nga ba ito? Tapos,
Saan po yung
Agta,
saan po? Saan po yung
Biniambisyosa,
Katabaga?
at Agta, Sorsogon, sa Sorsogon.
Oh.
5 po. Kaya ngayon,
Pag
meron po
sinabi niyong
35.
naglaho, wala na po tayong maski anong dokumento na tanglay po ang wikang yon?
Kadalasan ho ay talagang zero na po. Wala na hong nagsasalita.
No, walang nagsasalita. Pero meron kayong sulat. Meron kayong na-document na sound o wala talaga?
Wala pong ortografiya yung
Nothing.
mga wikang yon.
Okay, whatever you can research, whole of NCCA approach, just a one-pager on each of the 5 languages. But I'm asking about the island in Samar, in Region 8, where there's a dying language. Would you have that?
Ano ho po ang pangalan?
Hindi
Hindi
po.
ko alam kaya ako, kasi
Hindi ba
pre-pandemic,
kapul?
sinabi sa akin yan ng komisyon. Would
Hindi-
Chair Ino know that?
I thought maybe
Pakiulit nga po yung pangalan ng wika.
Hindi ko nga alam, kaya ako tinatanong po. Ako pa-
Kasi po, gusto lang namin i-counter check
Teka,
kung narito po yung pangalan ng wika na yan sa
Basta
listahan
Samar po.
ng mga
Isang-
wika.
isang
art
isla sa
kapul.
Samar na taon-taon sinasabi sa akin na mamatay. So
Yeah.
baka kasama na rin yan sa namatay. Who would know that?
Dr. Casanova,
Who's been with me from the
Ido-document po
sinaunang panahon?
namin, kagalang-galang na senadora. Meron
Can
kami
you
dito
check
nakalista
kapul?
na Lauag,
Sige, research na lang nyo.
Kapul.
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 Kapul Island.
Kapul Island.
Opo,
Northern Samar.
opo.
Is it still alive and they're still speaking it? Ay.
Aalamin namin at pupuntahan po namin.
This year. This year. Kasi next
Opo,
year,
opo,
papakawala
opo.
na eh. Oo.
Ngayong taong ito.
Kasi like 5 years na pinag-uusapan niya na mamatay eh, na wala ng tao.
So, Sen. Lauren, what is the strategy para hindi mamatay?
Okay,
Kasi di ba
tama.
may 30 pa na natitira. So, ano gagawin natin para hindi mamatay yung 30?
No, wait. Ang 30 natitira. That's 135, right?
Opo.
And how many have died? 5.
Opo,
So there's 130 alive,
opo.
right?
30 na nanganganib.
30.
At meron pa akong 35 na malapit na maglaho na nanganganib.
Okay.
Hingalo.
Okay, sagutin po nyo, not in general terms, anong ginagawa po nyo? Tama yung tanong ni Santo Pinay,
Kami po ay may proyektong tinatawag na Bahay Wika. At ito po ay sinimulan namin sa wikang Aita Magbukon sa Bataan. At itong taong ito ay nagpunta po kami sa Baler at kami po ay nalisik doon at nabatid namin na may isang wika po doon na kailangan po na nanganganib na maglaho kung kaya kami nagtatayo ngayon ng Bahay Wika. Okay? Tapos, ganun din po sa Cadiz, Negros. Kaya itong 2 wika na ito, ang pagtatayuan po ng 2 bagong bahay wika sa mga susunod na buwan. At kami po ay kasama dito sa language revitalization namin, ang bahay wika, kung kaya kapag matugunan namin ang itong 2 ito po ay susundan pa ng ibang wika na sana po ay mapabilis namin at mabigyan kami ng...
Okay.
Okay?
Sir, Mr. Casanova, when say magtatayo, infrastruktura, capital outlay,
Meron po.
Hindi kailangan. Madam Chair, oo. Hindi kailangan. Bakit kailangan ng struktura to preserve a language? No, I think it's wrong priority. Sorry to say this. It's wrong priority. May I just proceed?
Meron.
Yes. The fastest way is for you to contact, please, the LGU and the State University SUC in that area. And please craft a MOU with the SUC. We will help you. We will help you so that the language that is dead, dying, endangered, or alive and spoken can, especially the dying, can be helped, and it could be a special program, resuscitated, rehabilitated by the SUC. I don't know if my colleagues would agree. Rather than building a structure, what would the structure help? So LGU, so ganito, 135. Dead, dying, endangered alive.
Tama.
Spoken. Yan. In your own words and then explain. And then what area is it? And just an estimate how many people speak it. 1,000? Or maybe 10? Remaining, ganon. And then LGU, whether they're interested or not, communicate with them. A standard template of the letters. Then copy furnish our offices. Then we'll divide the work. And then the SUC in that area. In the absence of an SUC, we'll find an institute that can help. Please, no need to build an infrastructure to be called a Bahay Wika. You can work on it already with the LGU and with the SUC or a CSO or a PO. I am certain there would be people interested to help you with that.
Opo.
Opo, maraming salamat
It's
po.
the program, not the infrastructure to house your project.
Maganda po yung binanggit nyo ngayon kasi ang amin pong ang unang konsepto po ng Bahay Wika ay may bahay na doon po tinuturuan yung mga bata ng kanilang mga elders ng partikular na wika. Kaya maganda po yung konsepto na yan at amin pong tatalakayin yan nang sa ganoon ay magkaroon ng inobasyon ang programang yan.
Madam Chair, with your permission po. Ganun nga po talaga ang ginagawa namin kapag tinutukoy po namin ay Bahay Wika. Nakikipag-ugnayan po kami sa LGUs na siya naming partner at meron din po kami mga tinatawag na SWAC directors. Sila po nagbibigay ng impormasyon sa amin at hindi naman po namin talaga kailangan ng infrastructure para sa tinatawag naming Bahay Wika. Hindi po talaga. Kung hindi, ito po ay isang lugar kung saan ang batang maliit pa, munti pa lang, ay tinuturuan na magsalita para po merong transfer na intergenerational. Ang problema lang po namin talaga ay syempre po, nangangailangan kami ng mga nagtuturo at mga pumupunta doon. At ito po, pinapapunta namin sila, mga bata po ito, ang mga 3 taon, para po masabi nila at natuturo sa kanila kung paano sinasabi. Ganun lang
Simple
po.
question. Of the 135 languages, can you pinpoint at least one expert, I'm sure there are more, in each language in your directory? You must have. And that would be the focal. Can you bring them together? Let's have here a meeting of the language bearers. You
Meron
have 135 people we can put in one committee room and we see.
Mari po kaming magsumite ng mga pangalan sapagkat sa bawat lugar po ay meron kaming tinatawag na mga sentro ng wika kung saan meron po kaming tinatap. Karaniwan po ito ay mga maestra o mga nagtuturo po talaga ng wika. Hindi po naman ito yung mga malayo sa kanila.
Yes.
Opo.
Usually it's teachers or the elders.
Or yung mga
or-
elders, tama po kayo. Yun po yung mga pinupuntahan
or
ng mga
even
tao
teachers.
namin.
There are young ones interested in this. So,
Opo. Kaya
hindi
po,
lang po isa. Sinabi ko lang isa kasi, pero kung marami, para lahat ng language bearers, tapos
Ay.
i-document nyo at ibigay nyo po sa amin, kasi tinanong ni Senator Binay kanina, how are you preserving these languages? Kasi to preserve, let's say, a weaving tradition, I would know. You would give them a loom, whether backstrap or foot loom, then we would give them fiber or threads, and they can teach weaving. But to intergenerational, how do you
Tama.
teach a language? It's more complicated.
masabi ko lang po bilang example ay yung sa tinukoy po ni Chairman kanina na yung item magbukon. Sa ngayon po ay nakapagpatapos na kami sa Bahay Wika ng 65 batang item magbukon na marunong na pong magsalita. At sila po pag lumaki, ito po ay tinutrain namin sa pamamagitan po ng tinatawag naming Master Apprentice Program. So, siyempre, magkakalaro po yan. Yun ang salitang ginagamit nila, yung kanilang wika. Para kapag sa bahay, yun na rin po yung gagamitin. Pag nasa eskwelahan, meron ng kausap. Kasi kahit na panputuruan ng bata, kung wala po siyang kausap, hindi po niya yan matatransfer, hindi niya magagamit. At yun po ang pinagugugulan lang namin ng pera, yung mga nagtuturo po. Medyo mahirap lang po talaga sapagkat wala naman pong karaniwang laging volunteer. Alam niyo po yun, yung minsan may mga magulang na kailangang nandun sa amin.
Yung
Binibigyan
kaya
din
nyo.
ng allowance.
And perhaps, I think Senator Pia mentioned this to me earlier off mic, yung collaboration ninyo with the, or with Senator Binay, with the SLT, because the SLTs are, the SLTs or
Naroon na
languages,
sila.
that's,
Yes po, dahil nandun na po sila.
nandun na
So,
sila.
maaari po kami
Yung
makipagtulungan.
ay dapat nag-uusap
Opo,
kayo.
opo.
Yung
Gagawin po
language
namin
po
yan.
at saka yung SLT, di ba po?
Tama po,
Yeah.
sapagkat hindi po magkahiwalay ang wika at kultura. Salamat po.
Yeah, Cultural Center of the Philippines, yes. Nikki is a newly elected president, right? Yes. And of course,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
welcome the former chair of the NCCA, Dr. Laya. When you mentioned about the 3 years, maybe because it's an opportunity for you to really have an outreach in all the provinces. Yeah. In your presentation, did you have your programs for outreach in all the provinces so that the CCP programs that you mentioned can be performed, it's also in a way good so that culture, music performances are not housed in four walls or elitist, then there could be more outreach for the youth.
Dennis, ikaw mag-ano.
Part na ng budget nyo or we have to augment that, yung inyong pagpunta sa probinsya?
I request our artistic director to describe the outreach programs, Madam Secretary.
I'm referring not just to the PPO, and many years ago, we brought the PPO to the provinces. I think, with a beautiful backdrop of the St. John National Cultural Treasures, even let's say in Gabaldon buildings of the DepEd, nearby KWF Bantayog Wika markers, or in a museum of NHCP, right? So, kayo, yung mga venues, pwede niyong gamitin po yun.
Thank you, Madam Senator. Actually, the irony is that under the budget approved by NEP, they reduced our trading and production budget from present levels 2023. However, of the 100 million that was allocated for trading and production, 50 million was actually set aside for regional outreach. So we do have the funds for the outreach performances. What is in danger are actually the regular programs that we have been doing for the last 20 years.
What are these regular?
Well, in the wish list that we have presented to both houses and also to the Senate right now, the wish list is 722 million, 400 for the rehabilitation, 100 for the deficit in personal services. We are proposing additional 222 million. Of the 222 million, 60 million is for the implementation of the National Performing Arts Companies Act, the Republic Act 11392, which was enacted in 2019, which has not been funded until now. The other programs that are in danger if we don't have the additional funding that we are wishing for are the following. First, we have the Cinemalaya, the annual Cinemalaya program that, if you recall, you actually mandated some budgets that should had been inputted by DBM. Our arts education programs, our arts festivals and competitions. This includes our festivals like the Virgin Love Fest and Pasinaya, which have been ongoing for 20 years. The season of the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra, and the amounts that we will need to spend for rentals of venues for the performances that have been displaced because of the rehabilitation. So that is those are what comprise the 222 out of the 722 million wish list that we are proposing.
It's not in your name.
No, because in our NEP, only 100 million was set aside for our programs, and 50 million is already for regional outreach. So what's now in danger are actually these regular programs.
In your regional outreach, which do you prioritize? What kind of performances? Are these PPOs? Are these zarzuelas? Are these ballet? What kind of performances do you prioritize in your outreach and what areas?
In practice, Madam Senator, there are two kinds of outreach performances that we do. One is the regular programs that we do where we bring around not only performers from the Metro Manila to the provinces, but also regional exchanges between and within the regions. So for this year, for example, we had performers from Mindanao doing outreach in Visayas, performers in Visayas going to Luzon and Luzon going to Mindanao and such that. The other aspect is when we do partner with local government units, and then that will be dependent on the particular needs of the local government units. As with your experience, Madam Senator, you particularly requested the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra, and it has turned out that the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra is a favorite among local government units, particularly because watching and seeing a performance of a philharmonic orchestra is something that is not common in most local government areas.
I'm looking at the records, no, and since 2020, upon CCP's request, we have granted additional funding for outreach programs. In 2020, 7 million. In 2021, 50 million. And I specifically remember this discussion. I think you'll recall, Senator Nancy, remember there were so many other senators who were very supportive of bringing it. Like I remember former Senate President Drilon wanted to bring it to Iloilo, and then Senator Joel to Bulacan. Lahat kami nag-chip in, nag-chime in na. So naging malaki yan, naging 50 million yan. And then in 2022, it was 40 million. And last year, it's 0. So I was asking my staff, wala kayong request. That's what I was, that's their recollection. And it may be because you had asked us to focus on itong office lease of performance venue, creative industry program. So lahat ng Senate interventions or assistance is in those areas: office lease of performance venue, creative industry program, general administration and support, web hosting, storage, etc. And that amounted to 97 million. For your information, because I never say no to outreach kasi I'm such a fan, and I knew that there were a lot of senators who would support it. So, to be clear, kami continuous ang record na nagsusupport kami dyan. And you can expect our support again. But you also have to do the difficult job of helping us prioritize. Because there will not, sabi nga ni Nancy, Senator Nancy asked a very practical question. O paano kung hindi ma-fund yung 400 million for the building, di ma-delay? Kasi I will have to bring this up to the chairman of our Committee on Finance, no? That is the reality of our funding issues.
Actually, Madam Chair, we try to make do with whatever resources are available to us. Like, for example, if we cannot send the 100-man strong orchestra,
Yes, you said
we send PPO chamber ensembles,
yes.
smaller groups, so they can go to different places. And then in addition to that, we ask them to conduct master classes for local musicians. So we try to make do with whatever is available to us.
Well, we'll be sure to include it, but yun nga, there seems to have been a gap last year. So yun nga, but again, it would appear that the priority will also have to go towards the building.
Madam Senator, particularly 2022-2023 was really a transition because the decision to really rehabilitate the building became really preeminent. And we're using whatever funds had been left are still available to continue with our outreach. And for 2024, those funds have been already in the NEP for the regional outreach. So the priority really for 2024 is really to make sure that the rehabilitation of the building continues and is done on time. Otherwise, then we will still have the building unusable for far longer than we had initially envisioned.
Madam Chair,
they had.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Magkano ho ba yung magiging total cost for the rehabilitation?
Right now, we're expecting that aside from the funds that we already have, we were estimating an additional 1 billion for the next 2 years, which has not been allocated. But we can work with 400 million for 2024, and hopefully we can have another 400 million in 2025.
1 billion to finish the building.
Yes, in addition to the funds that we
Yung
already have.
multi-year yung nakuha yung ano,
No. On a year.
from DBM.
Actually, what happened was that the funds that we are initially using for now were initially allocated by the Senate for the construction of the Arts Center, of the Artist Center. So in lieu of that, then the funds were then realigned for the rehabilitation of the main theater.
And ano na ho nangyari for the Artist Center?
That's still in abeyance, and that's something that we might include in our 2023 to 2028 proposal, as suggested by Senator Legarda, in terms of a development plan for the arts. It's still part of the complex development plan, but right now the priority is, of course, in the rehabilitation of the main theater.
Siguro, Madam Chair, can you just submit to the committee the complex development plan? Gaano kalaki pa ho ba yung areas na kailangan i-develop ng CCP within the complex? Kasi at the moment, yung pinag-uusapan lang ho natin na budget is basically just for the building. Wala pa yung for the other properties ng CCP complex.
Yes, Madam Senator. Actually, the intention is to fully develop the complex because as originally envisioned, revenues from those developments are supposed to support the funding of the CCP. However, as we were conversing earlier, there were a number of items over the last several decades that have prevented us from fully developing all the properties.
Sige po. Kasi parang we need to start somewhere, di ba? In how to develop the whole complex. Dahil for the past, ano yung pinakabagong structure dyan na nagawa niyo?
The Black Box Theater, which was financed by a donation from a philanthropist, the Tanghala Ignacio Jimenez, named after the donor.
And government funds, meron mo ba? Government funds, a new structure within the complex.
The original plan was to have the Artist Center, and that was what the Senate had granted several years ago. But that fund went now to the rehabilitation of the main theater building.
Okay.
How much is the net for capital outlay for the rehabilitation of the main cultural center?
Now,
In
from
your
the NEP,
Yes.
hardly.
No,
there was-
just there must be an amount. Impossible that they allowed you to leave and then it's not in the net. Posibleng wala.
Not in the NEP.
Huh?
Yes.
We're discussing the net now.
Yes, that's why we're asking for an
But I
Zero?
can,
none.
yeah, but I can add to this discussion, no?
Oh, but kita pa natin.
There was a large amount in the previous budget, well, in the 2023 budget, but there is low obligation in disbursement. These were all congressional subsidies. So even if we push DBM to support a project, pag nakita nila na low yung utilization, we cannot do anything about it. And kahit kami. And then in addition, yeah, I'm told, not just to put it na lang on the record, and you can just add to it. You had to renegotiate with possible contractors. And so that took time, but that's the reason why DBM will
Yes.
not
So they just
fund it.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, they just have to use whatever is in the GAA 2023 since it will extend, I am sure, to December 2024. How much is in your GAA 2023 which the chair said you did not even utilize? Sayang naman yun. That's the reason pala. There must be a reason kaya sabi ko na hindi sila binigyan eh. How much is your present year's budget that you have not utilized? Not even obligated.
We're looking at the figures, Madam Senator. Of course, the reason for that is that largely when the CCP reopened halfway through last year,
we were still working on the arranging the contracts for the consultants and the contractors.
What we're trying to explain is, if there is a capital outlay amount in GAA 2023 for your rehabilitation, and if it's not been obligated, you obviously will not receive a NEP 2024 which will be carried on in the GAA 24 kasi meron pa pala kayo. So if you have whatever amount, 100 in the present year's budget, how much do you have that's not yet obligated? You use that. Sayang.
Yes,
Oo.
actually, the reason that we went back also to the DBM was that we expected those amounts to be obligated already by the second half of this year. And the request that we're making for the 400 million is what we do expect that we do need for next year.
Dali. Magkano po ang GAA 23 nyo na CO for the rehab? How much was given?
For the rehabilitation, it's 1.4
1.4 what?
billion.
It was in your GAA 2023?
But dito was continuing appropriations from 2016.
Ano? Wait.
And then the amounts that had been utilized is 900 million.
How much? Okay. To date, how much do you have?
500 from last year, it was 515.
Hi, Tess. Yan pala si Tess.
515 million.
Ah, malaki. Yung 500 for the building, malaki.
Yeah.
Okay. You utilize that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will really not be. I would also, sorry, all of us, I'm speaking, would not support a GAA amendment for capital outlay because you've not used 500 plus million, which you have to utilize. If that was from previous years,
Yes.
it might expire by December.
Actually,
Sayang.
Madam Senator, that's what we were explaining to DBM and we're explaining now. We're expecting that to be fully obligated by October by this year. And
Is the 500M an amendment for GAA 2023? Was it, in short, was it last year granted for this year's budget? Yes.
yes.
So that means, I hope, the budgets
So
hanggang December 2024 ang validity niyan. But if you say you can obligate it by this
This year.
last quarter, September na po tayo, that means implementation will be in the whole of 2024.
yes.
Okay. So 500 is big because your total rehabilitation budget is how much?
2 billion.
2. That's already 1/4. And it's a 3-year rehab.
Yes.
I think that's enough because you very, very slow utilization. That's why I understand DBM, they would not put, kasi nakita nila, over 500. That's very big.
No, just FYI, Senator Lauren chaired the Committee on Finance for 5 years, 3 years, 6 years. So alam na alam niya yan. So if she says na mahirapan talaga. So let's do. I'm just a vice chair, but the final decision is the chair. But we make the recommendation. So from her experience, that's how it is. So let's be fair. You just want to be fair with
Yes,
expectations.
hindi
That's
po
all.
ako nagano ha. You know, I'm very supportive of
Yeah.
CCP. I'm just being realistic. And kindly give a report to the chair because we are fully supporting. We're very supportive whether it's infrastructure or soft. But we have to be realistic. And I'm just trying to explain second reading DBM why they did not give you because I could not imagine why the government, DBM, would not give an agency that has moved out and zero. May paliwanag dyan. Yung pala yung paliwanag. Meron palang 500 plus na hindi pa nagagalaw at hindi pa na-obligate last quarter of the year na, ay iklaro po ninyo kung anong taon yan. Kasi baka mag-expire na yan December of this year, patay, sayang, o hindi, gumaganon kayo. O sige, very good kung ma-expire, pero obligate nyo ang implementation niya next year. What I can foresee, but I'm not the chair of finance now, ay baka sa 2025 kayo magkaroon ng NEP. Kasi nakikita ko yung 500, ang hirap niyang gastusin. Napabid na nyo, may contractors na kayo, naka-move in na ba sila? Wala pa, i-obligate pa lang. Oo.
May I
September na. GOC, so hindi GOC, hindi nag-expire yung fund. So, is that whole 500, okay, that whole 500 is for the rehab, the CO. Malaki na yan.
May we request the committee to give us maybe a few days to submit a complete report on this because it's a rather complicated situation. First of all, it takes a lot of time to comply with the procurement law, all of the bidding, etc., etc. So part of it is because of that. And then secondly, the construction of the building takes several stages. Like stage 2 cannot begin unless stage 1 is completed. And it just happens that for weather conditions, for holidays, and other reasons, there is a delay in the completion of stage 1. And so stage 2 cannot begin until that is completed. And so with the committee's permission, we'd like to request a few days to submit a detailed report to explain all of these delays.
Sige po. Just make it very clear, we're fully supportive of the speedy rehabilitation of a work of a national artist, which is a CCP. But we also want to make sure that every million is spent wisely and on time. And I'm just second guessing why DBM made it 0 for CO because you have a 500. And you've not even obligated it when it's already the last quarter of the year. But everything that Dr. Laya said, of course, we know that. And we've seen how slow, kung mga school building lang, ang bagal-bagal, lalo na ito maingat, national artist. So naintindihan natin. I hope it doesn't happen that we are here next year talking like this, tas groundbreaking pa lang kayo. Nako, kasi yung papeles niyan mahaba po yan. So, yun. But I leave it to the chair of your budget how to deal with that after we receive your requests.
Senator, siguro just for clarification, the 500 million did not come from DBM, di ba? Pinul nyo yun from your corporate income. So there's no augmentation from mga congressional So parang DBM na wala. Oo nga. Tsaka nakita pa rin ng DBM na may pondo kayo.
For everyone's information, when you have congressional subsidies, DBM does even doktor para sa bayan na seriously, I mean that's like, doktor para sa atin. Hindi nila yan, 4 na taon yan na inantay ko na maging recurring budget on the part of DBM yan. Hindi talaga 4 na taon yon. So it is like the last thing that they will do is to make it a NEP regular item when it comes from Congress. They really look at it carefully. They look at it carefully whether it's initiated in the NEP or if it's a congressional subsidy, but more so if it's a congressional subsidy because in their mind, hindi namin pinag-aralan yan. So I want to see kung nagastos nyo ng maayos. And then kahit nagastos ng maayos, they'll still let it be on Congress burden to find the funding for it. So it's just how it is.
I like the word burden.
Burden. Burden talaga
So don't get us. But to show our interest and our support for each and every agency, but time is always lacking. So I'll yield to my colleagues. Thank you for your patience with all the questions. Yeah. Sige.
Yeah, Madam Chair, can I proceed? I'll just get an update kung magkano na yung remittance ng from the travel tax. Kasi diba the past years, ang laki ho ng binaba ng nakukuha natin sa travel tax. Are we back to almost pre-pandemic levels?
By the end of the year, we expect about 600 million.
And magkano yung pre-pandemic collection ng ano? I mean,
Much larger.
nakukuha niya from
Mga 800.
600.
ano na? Okay.
No, but we would hit 800, di ba?
Yeah, they have given us forecast, I think, for the next 600. Parang yun na po, madam.
And hopefully, as we open up and as
It
we
will get larger.
travel more, we'll get a bigger share from the travel tax. And with a bigger share ho, ano yung mga programs na pwedeng ma-implement ng NCCA?
We
Or naisip niyo na ba kung saan niyo i-earmark yung mga ganong ano,
Yeah.
collection?
well, kasi for next year we have it's already set, no, at about 500 million. But that's why we requested for supplemental funds. And some of these things we've been trying to shift the funding to the GAA rather than to our special fund. Because even things like electricity are charged to the NEFCA, rather to the special fund rather than to the GAA, which every other agency ganon. So right now we have many basic programs like yung National Artists, yung the National Gamaba Award, yung mga craftsmen, mga craftspeople. That's all under it hasn't been granted us. Even the maintenance of the Met Theater, wala din kaming fund this year under GAA.
So yung mga nandito sa wish list nyo,
Yes.
zero
Zero.
allocation.
Yeah. So medyo it'll be very difficult for us kung hindi to ma-fund.
Okay, so for example, kung hindi kayo mabibigyan ng funds for the Gamaba, how will you proceed with the
We'll have to source it from our NEFCA. Kasi nga it's already these are already commitments. We're also hoping that you will be able to assist us with the Venice Biennale, with the Likaan Resource Center, things like that, no? Which are
or else, kukunin nyo dun sa NEFCA nyo?
we'll have to take it out of NEFCA, but that's also getting depleted.
Kano na ho yung nade-deplete? Because I think because of the pandemic, malaki talaga yung nagamit dun sa NEFCA.
Yeah. We had to take it, we had to remove from the NEFCA the last 2 years.
So siguro kayo just submit to the
Yes.
committee yung status nung NEFCA.
Okay. Yeah, we
Yung binalim.
generally check on it. No, we've requested it from the DBM, but we did not get it.
Ako na mag-amend.
Mm.
Dali. The Biennale is it's an annual thing.
Yes.
Art and architecture. Please don't wait when I'm no longer here, when those who are supporting it are no longer here. Please, even after the term of Chair Ino, make it please an annual allocation. So you're zero in the NEP?
Well,
Zero. Si Mina,
Yes.
isa-zero niya? Imposible naman. Ha?
Madam Chair, we are given only salaries of the
You know, you
permanent.
didn't, maybe you didn't fight for it because impossible for Sec Mina to zero that. A project that she started in
but
mid
we
2012.
wrote again, di ba?
Impossible, baka hindi lang kayo na heads up sa dami ng nakikita.
When they wrote us, we wrote them back
Anong
requesting
pinigay nyo sana sa request nyo sa NEP for the Biennale?
70 million.
Di 70 lahat na yun ng mga likaan. Biennale 20 lang yan, 30.
No, the Biennale for this year is our budget that we proposed was 70 million.
For 1 year of the Biennale, we will not be able to use 70. I know for 1 year of the Biennale, kalahati lang.
But
Kasi-
that
Sir, I think
includes the
the
preparation.
cycle is we have architecture implementation
Yeah,
and
that-
Yes.
preparation for
After
that.
2 years
For 2
kasi.
years yan.
Okay.
For the preparation for the 2 years.
Tiniro kayo? Tanong ko sa kanya. Bakit
ma'am.
yun? Imposible.
Yes.
Tapos, zero na rin ang funds nyo for this year because magko-closing ng November. Zero na. So, for next year, which is art, at may nanalo na, kung hindi kami tumulong mag-amend, walang pondo? Ganun ba yun? Are you telling me?
Yes.
Wala po.
Can't believe it. That they zeroed it. Who's our finance? Where's Ria? Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. Zero na ang funds for Biennale, meaning if I don't amend it, we don't help, we don't have funds to stage the exhibition where we announced already, someone already won, a group won already, forget the name, for ingress to Venice by first quarter of next year. Wala? I can't believe that. I'm sure there's funds there.
Ma'am, we have the preparatory na for the next year.
For the closing to
Yes,
bring home
yes.
November, you have it.
Yes.
Okay, for this year.
23 po.
For 2023. And then it's zero already. Zero. You're sure, ah?
24 po, ma'am.
For 2024. Baka may 510 for the ingress for impossible for May of 2024. Art. Check nyo. Check nyo.
Recheck
Mamaya,
it. We'll
ano yung
recheck
sabi?
it.
Kasi parang imposible. Oh, alam ko may continuing yan, but otherwise, so obviously, pabayaan ba kayo? We will come to your rescue. Sige. Pero make it realistic because it's not 70 for next year. Baka that would also be for architecture of 2025.
The preparation.
Yeah. Where's yeah, just give me the breakdown, realistic breakdown. But I'll talk to Ria, bakit umabot ng zero? Dapat yan may preparation biennial kasi yan, pero every year naman art architecture. So hindi dapat ang kaban na si zero pagka uwi ng Nobyembre, zero na for next year. That's dangerous. Right? Sige. Okay. Right? Sige. Okay. Remind me, I forget to mention it. Sige. Okay.
Ask na lang ulit. Kasi Madam Chair, di ba during the budget hearing of DepEd, parang nabanggit doon na they will be publishing textbooks. May coordination ho ba ang DepEd with our culture agencies pagdating doon sa content ng mga textbooks na gagamitin ng DepEd?
We don't have a program on the textbooks.
Hindi, so parang hindi kayo nako-consult NHCP, NCCA dun sa content ng textbooks?
Yes, ma'am. We were consulted, invited, no? Pero mostly meron kasi silang pool of scholars na talagang nakatutok doon sa mga textbooks. Kasi ang NCP more on the yung mga reliability of facts, halimbawa mga primary source on the question of primary sources. Pero yung halimbawa yung trajectory ng curriculum, mga karaniwan po sila po yung nagseset po noon. Yes, ma'am.
Pero for dun sa content ng textbook, kunyari an art about Jose Rizal, hindi ho ba parang naggagaling sa inyo yung content?
Hindi
Kasi
po,
ngayon,
ma'am.
ba parang nagiging problema ng DepEd, yung mali-maling
Yes.
laman ng mga textbooks nila eh.
Yes, so supposedly ma'am, meron pong mga technical panels po yan na merong mga experts na nagde-deliberate on that. Ngayon, we were consulted relative dun sa mga reliability ng mga
So, bahagi naman ho kayo ng technical panel.
Ako po kasi meron akong separate capacity as member ng technical panel. Pero ang NHCP usually invited lang po.
Hindi automatic.
Hindi po.
Or
hindi
how
po.
about kunyari NCCA? Hindi rin kayo automatic na part ng technical panel. Kayo, bahagi ho ba kayo ng technical panel for yung textbooks ng DepEd?
Hindi po kami bahagi noon.
Yung pag-check kung tama ba yung grammar na ginamit noon, kung tama ba yung gamit ng
Iniimbitahan lang po minsan iniimbitahan po kami ang ilang mga kawani. Pero hanggang doon lang po.
So hindi kayo parang
Ng MOA.
automatic na bahagi na ito yung mga textbooks, aaralin namin kung tama yung gamit ng NG, NANG.
Meron po kasi ang pagkakabatid ko, ang kagawaran ng edukasyon ay may sariling division na namamahala dyan. Bureau of Learning Resources.
Siguro dapat kinoconsult kayo ng Bureau of Learning Resources? Dahil technically kayo ho yung may expertise pagdating dun sa ganyan.
Kami po ay nagwika sa DepEd na kung pwede ay makasama kami sa ganyan. Lalo na po sa issue ngayon ng FSL. Kasi po dapat nasa curriculum din po ang FSL.
That's a very valid point. You are the holders of knowledge, the torchbearers, ang ganda ng pagsasaliksik yung lahat. Wika ka man, o sa cultural center, or national cultural treasure, o kasaysayan, lahat. Dapat ang inyong kaalaman and the body of work before your terms, whether your library is accessible, not just among yourselves, but to DepEd. Share it. So, how do you share the information? Madam Chair, may we craft a special provision in the DepEd budget or even the NCCA budget so that they are mandated to share it with DepEd and maybe even SUCs. Kasi hindi pwede, tayo sa gobyerno parang naka-cubicle lahat eh. Tapos ganyan, information, ganun. Share nyo para so that it's mutual, not just them sharing, but a DepEd special provision. I'll propose it, if you would agree, for both of them to have coordination, convergence, yes, that's correct word, for utilization of well-researched knowledge of each and every agency. There's so much knowledge. Yeah. Yung pag-aral lang ng wika eh. Oh, tapos lahat ng yung mga ganyan, marami pa, iba. So, special provision for convergence, mag-draft nga kayo. Irene, alam mo, under the DepEd budget and under the NCCA budget and each agency. Pero, you must share your information and share it to the Senate library. Kaya nandiyan si baby. Si baby. Umakit na. Oo, not just the hard copy, but a soft copy so that we have access to it. Kasi sometimes yun ang sakit nating lahat na nananatili ang ating kaalaman sa ating kanya-kanyang hard drive o cloud o sa ating lang mga disks, not disks, computers and among us. But we should make it available because we use government funds for that and because it would really enhance the knowledge of everyone. That's why the platform of each agency within the NCCA, not just your website, but whatever is the most visited platform, I don't know, Facebook or, right? Sige, share please. Thanks. Hindi tayong pwede nasa cubicles o nasa silo ha, nasa kanya-kanya. Kasi konektado lahat ng ating inaaral. Ang ating pinupondohan na dinodocument, na pinoprotect, na inaaral ay dapat pag-aralan ng milyon-milyon mga bata. At hindi lang sa DepEd, pati sa SUC. Tapos maghanda kayo, wika, ng exhibit dito ng hindi lang namin picture, ganun, hindi sound. We want to hear and we want to see, let's say, a video in different monitors of people speaking different languages. In fact, I would challenge you to have an exhibit of the 5 dead languages and find whatever you have, salita, ortografiya, o kung ano man nananatili na nandyan. Sige, yung 5. Yung 5, i-research ninyo. Kailan ba ay sayang, tapos na ang buwan ng wika. Kakatapos lang. O hindi, basta wala naman, ano yan designation kung anong buwan lang pwede. In the coming months, please. Or February, it's arts, but why wait for next year? Make it this year. Oh, just a 1-week exhibit, please. Thanks. On the 5 dead languages. Assuming 5 lang yan. Isama ninyo si Kapul. Even just let's say, the map of that area, the kind of people who populate the area, the kind of culture they have in that area, and whatever written. Do you have a handkerchief where there's a sulat na ganyan? Do you have any writing on a wall of that? There must be. Imposibleng wala. Tutulungan kayo ng iba. Diba? Sige.
We look into that and assist them.
Isa pa. Sabi ko, you know, our new president of CCP was you'd be interested, kindergarten teacher. And she had a program for teaching music to children. Why don't you institutionalize that as part of your outreach? And it doesn't have to be flying to this place, even just the children of Metro Manila. Yeah, in Taguig, in Malabon, in Makati, it would be so nice. Can you please give us a program for children of Metro Manila? This will veer them away from drugs, from away, from potential road rage. It's for mental health. Okay.
Yes.
So give us a program using your organic budget, ha?
Yes.
Or we can support a little, but for DepEd schools or the ECCD, the daycare centers.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Senator. This gives me the chance to report to the committee.
Kindergarten, ang tawag doon?
Music garden po, ma'am.
Music garden.
Garden, yes.
Music garden eh.
Opo. Thank you for bringing that up, Madam Senator. In fact, we have already started a program with CCP. It's called Heleng Atin. So it's the indigenous lullabies. And you actually supported this project, and it's I discussed it with you a long time ago, and we were able to jumpstart the program. In fact, we have even published lullabies from various regions: Mindanao, several areas, Tawi-Tawi, Bicol, Ilocos, and we can send it to you. We can send you a report on that. We already have collected 16 lullabies. And the good thing about this, Madam Senator, is that we have not only published it, but we created videos, in fact, that it's very relevant for young families. So, my profession, I happen to be an early childhood music educator, is we want to preserve through oral traditions itong mga lullabies. And instead of using Western repertoire, I really want us to use yung mga lullabies ng mga regions, indigenous.
The documentation of the 16
lullabies
of different languages, and your video, where are they? Share it with us today.
Yes, Senator. And in fact, schools, I've got reports already that schools, preschools, private and public have already started using the lullabies. This will not only help in preservation, but also help in mental health.
Different languages?
Yes.
16 different languages?
Yes, Senator.
Lullabies which are written by Filipinos?
Yes po.
Authors and poets?
Yes po.
Okay.
Is it on Spotify exactly? Is it on Spotify?
Yes. Yes, Madam Chair. Also in YouTube. Kasi may video na po siya. And they can play.
Yeah, can you send it?
Yes, I'll give it to you po.
Okay.
Opo. And if maramarapating niyo po, since medyo na-inspire po ako sa discussion about wika, music is really a very helpful tool in deepening yung ating appreciation for the various languages. And one of the projects that I would like to actually do is to publish po yung mga children's songs kasi nagsistart po yun sa foundational years. Sige,
Sige. Yeah, we'd like to give the floor now to.
thank
Senator
you,
Jane
Madam Chair.
Ejercito.
Thank you, Senators. Yeah.
You've been
Thank you.
recognized.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I just had to finish the hearing on the Department of Migrant Workers so that I can be here as well. Probably you already know my concern. Siguro nakausap po na rin si Director noon. But I think, Madam Chair, the National Historical Commission has a very significant role in strengthening patriotism, love for country. Kasi nandyan yung ano natin eh. Yun ang kulang natin siguro talaga, yung love for history. And it's not often that public officials really give importance to history. Totoo naman yun kasi wala namang botong nakukuha dito eh. So that's why I really felt sad when in San Juan, yung mga bantayog namin, no? I gave a privilege speech, I delivered a privilege speech, and all of the women here, our respected women legislators, also stood up because they are all equally very much concerned our history. Ang nakakalungkot po doon that our mayor is saying that there was a memorandum issued between the San Juan LGU and NHCP for the relocation of the said monuments. Kaya ako po to, hindi lang po para sa akin, hindi lang to monument, Madam Chair. These are all symbols of our patriotism. Kaya nga po nilagay yan landmark, no? Hindi ito, no, landmark yan. So that all those who will pass to San Juan, pag nakita pa lang yan, oy, si Andres Bonifacio, oy, Emilio Jacinto, si Rizal. Because the first battle of the revolution was in San Juan. Tama, di ba? It's a battle of San Juan del Monte. And in other countries, I'm sure all St. Laurent, St. Pia, St. Nancy, who have traveled a lot also, sobra po ang importansyang binibigay sa mga bantayog because these are all symbols of pride. So, when I was mayor of San Juan, one of my very first projects were the establishments of this because San Juan is a historical town. Kaya namin sabi ko, ito yung strength namin, dapat dito makilala. So, ang ano doon is to have landmarks so that if people pass there, nakikita nila, oy, nasa San Juan kami, dito yung pinaglabanan. Nalungkot na ako isang araw, galing nagsimba po ako, sabi ko, ba't madilim na? Akala ko, sira lang yung ilaw. Yung pala, wala na si Andres Bonifacio. Niligpit na nga siya noon, nung panahon ng revolusyon, pati ngayon, niligpit pa ulit. Di ba? Kung makikita niyo po, yan yung po yung original. Pag dumaan kayo ng San Juan, ng pinaglabanan, it's imposing. Kitang-kita yan. Talagang lahat you will feel proud. Di ba? Now, gano'n na po siya ngayon. Di ba? It's a bush. It's a current, sige, next. Ayan, yung Emilio Jacinto, ngayon po, pinalitenda yun ng isa pang bush. Yan, papasok yan sa San Juan National High School kasi utak ng katipunan yun eh. Di ba dapat proud tayo? Nandun siya. Ngayon po, ito na po siya ngayon. Last, yung Jose Rizal, dati Jose Rizal yan, monument. Ngayon po, ayun, pinalta naman siya ng sculpture. Hindi ko malaman kung uod yan o ahas. Di ba? So, I just want to ask again, totoo nga ba na magkaroon tayo ng memorandum with NHCP and San Juan LGU for the transfer of these monuments? Kasi dapat yan landmark eh. Ngayon, nandun pa rin siya. Relocated inside the Pinaglabanan Shrine.
Magandang hapon po, Honorable Senator J.V. Ejercito. And before answer the question po. Just background po muna po. No? So, first of all, we really, of course, recognize the value of San Juan as a very historic place. That's why we have the shrines there. No? And second, we commend your action of installing monuments of importance that should, of course, source as educational value for our people. Okay, nung nakarating po sa amin yung balita about your privilege speech, we were moved by that. No? That's why what I did was I asked my people to know what's our take on it. No?
Sino artist niya?
Hindi ko.
Is this historical?
Ito, wala. Hindi ko alam yan. Hindi, ito yun.
No, this one. This one is not Castrillo.
Wala yan.
Patay na si Castrillo eh. Yung si Jose Rizal Castrillo.
Yun nga po. Actually po, bali po, nung malaman po namin sa HCP yung privilege speech, yung po una kong ginawa, pinag-usapan namin sa Mancom. Ano po ba ang
Rizal ba tong una? Parang hindi Rizal. Si Castrillo.
Castrillo po?
Ha? Saan linipat si Rizal?
Pinaglabanan shrine also.
Man.
Nilipat po. But it's inside. Nasa loob na siya ng park. Hindi na makita.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So, yun po, no, we recognize the importance. No, that's why nung makarating po sa amin, nagulat din po ako. No? So, pinag-usapan namin sa Mancom. Ang una kong tanong, ano po ang jurisdiction namin? No? Under the heritage law po, ay 50 years and above, ay kago po ng NHCP. At if it's a work of a national artist, no? And surprisingly po, yung po, dalawang category na yan, hindi po nag-fall sa amin. Kaya po ang nangyari ay hindi po namin basta mapakialaman. But
Yes,
ang tanong
okay lang. We talked about this, no? Tama kayo, dapat may 50 years na siya. Obviously, wala pa, 20 years pa lang yata ito, 25 years. Second, if it's a work of a national artist. But I think bottom line here is yung I think NHCP, let us not use the legal gambit. Wag natin yung legal but I think we have to, yes, Senlor. No, it's LGU but with the concurrence of NHCP. Apo. They could not because legally. Kaya lang, I think, Madam Chair, as in Lauren, what is more important yung value. Kaya the reason why I don't know, tita, parang I don't think so. Mukhang uod lang yan eh. Diba? Tignan mo naman yan.
To be fair, no? Nawala yung chair. To be fair to them, hindi nila kayang pakialaman kasi hindi sakop ng anumang batas, I see. To be fair to them,
Yes.
no? Hindi nila
That is correct, ma'am. That is correct. Kaya lang, sabi ko, wag sana gamitin legal gambit. Dapat tignan natin yung overall impact. Because those landmarks were placed there to serve as a reminder and yung parang source of pride, lalo na sa youth natin. Our youth, especially now, ay talagang kulang na sa nationalism eh. That's why we put that there. Kaya nga lang, ngayon pag nakita nyo doon, if you go inside, tama, nilagay naman sa pinaglabanan shrine. Ang ganda, parang camouflage. Sana no panahon ng revolusyon, maganda kasi hindi sila nakikita ng Espanyol. Eh ngayon hindi mo na rin makikita, landmark yan eh. Nakatago na sa puno. Chairman, tignan nyo ngayon. Puntahan nyo ngayon. Eh those are landmarks that was not meant to be camouflaged. Kung talagang sila Agnes Bonifacio, mas maganda naka-camouflage sila. Diba? So may lang, I hope that this does not happen again. Kawawa naman ang bansa natin. Kawawa naman yung sense of nationalism, patriotism. Wala nang love for history. Diba? Why should we succumb to a vindictive official dahil lang yan kay gagawa ng dating administrasyon? Bakit ganun? Sino pumayag dyan? Nakakalungkot. Sino bang pumirma nun?
Actually po, ang request po sa amin is just to receive it, dahil nga sa At siguro yung last chairman, nakita nila na it's fit naman siguro kung baka mamaya lalo lang siyang mawala. No? Kaya pumayag na ilagay sa shrine. But yung pong actually pag-a-uproot
But let me cut you, Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yung shrine, nandun na yung original dambana ng pinaglabanan, also done by Castrillo. Dapat yun siya lang yung center. Di ba? Class like in any monument, sa Washington, kung saan na malalaki, nandun. Ngayon, dinalagay nyo dun, di naman to Disneyland, kailangan maraming karakter o caricature eh. Di ba? Nakakalungkot lang kasi sa akin, hindi to because of political, but I feel bad because probably si Director Carmina Manalo, di ba? Arevalo. You were there before, no? Siguro na alam nyo rin yung history, yung ginawa namin sa pinaglabanan. We established myself, personally, yung Museo ng Katipunan as a dedication to Andres Bonifacio and the Katipuneros. Kasi siya lang ang walang talagang shrine. Di ba? Siya yung walang museum. Marami siyang bantayog. Si Jose Rizal, may kalamba. Si Emilio Jacinto, meron siyang sa Kawit. Museo ng Katipunan was established when I was mayor as well. Because ganun kamahal ko yung history, kahit walang boto dyan eh. Diba? Tapos pati itong mga ito, hindi lang isa to, hindi lang bantayog. Yung Museo ng Katipunan was my project. And now, yung pong na-inaugurate recently, yung El Deposito, which was dug, hinukay po yan. That was started by my mother when she was mayor. Tama ba, Director? Were you there already?
Yes po. Yung pong dalawang sinasabi nating museo ay mga administered and maintained by NHCP.
Oo nga po. But you can see already that yung LGU that time, we were really concerned with the historical value. Lalong-lalo na ng pinaglabanan, which is the site of the first battle. Sabi nga, di ba, walang tayong kalaya, walang pinaglabanan. Yan ang lagi sinasabi. And for the record, Museo ng Katipunan, sinistart po natin yan. And also, yung El Deposito. Tama po, panahon pa ni Mayor Gia. Di ba? Ando kayo ng planning. Natapos na po ngayon. Di ba? So, yun po ang kinalulungkot ko. Sana lang, tama kayo, may lusot kayo dun eh. Yung legal, is the legal justification na wala ako because hindi kayo pasok sa 50 years itong mga bantayog, hindi gawa national artist, although Castillo is a known artist as well. Kaya lang, ano nangyari? Asa na yung landmark? Kailangan pa ba bumaba yung mga estudyante ngayon doon para makita itong mga landmark? Landmark nga yan, kaya pag dumadaan, dapat nakikita. Parang sa Kawit, pag dumaan kayo, nakikita ng tao, di ba? Pride. It's the pride. Pag dumadaan ka na Rizal Park, nandoon yung Monumento Rizal. Nakikita. Ngayon, puntahan nyo po ito. Nakatago, camouflage by the trees. Nakakalungkot. All I'm saying, sorry, Director, no? I think you were the one who signed that. That why should we give in to the wishes of a vindictive, because of political reason? No, wala na ako naisip na ibang rason to eh. Kasi gusto lang itago eh. Di ba? I'm sorry, but I think that's how I see it. Again, this is a landmark. Kaya, Madam Chair, buti nandito ka na. Kaya masyado I really feel bad. Going to tracing back history, yung pong tatlong bantayo na tinayo na mayor ako, Museo ng Katipunan, we establish also as a dedication to the Katipuneros and Andres Bonifacio. Tapos yung El Deposito ngayon, tinuloy naman ng mother ko. So, bihira po talaga ang public official na mahilig sa history. Kaya nangihinayang ko eh. Di ba? Sayang. Meron ilan, pero bihira. Kaya, wala kasi boto rito eh. Di ba, no? Walang boto nakakuha.
Second that, it is very rare, no? That on their own, maglalagay ng, maggagastos and ng monument. So, I really understand the concern. Did you get a response? Not yet.
Yeah, si Chairman, si Director Arevalo.
Kung matatandaan po natin, Senator JV, ito pong dalawang minimension niyo pong museo, ito pong El Deposito at ang Museo ng Katipunan, yung dalawa pong yun, mini-maintain po at ina-administer po ng NHCP. Of course, tama po sa tulong din po ng San Juan, kasama po kayo sa nagpo-promote nito, kaya ito po ay isa sa mga most visited museums namin. Yung tungkol po sa pag-transfer ng mga monumento, una po yan na-request sa amin. Yung una pong request, hindi po namin pinagbigyan dahil nga, pero syempre hindi, may mga plano ang LGU sa kanilang sariling mga development, sa mga progress ng community nila. Apparently, ang dahilan doon, kailangang matanggal dahil nga sa traffic. So, bali, obstruct parang ganon sa road. Bali, ang huling request nila na for reconsideration, magbigay kami ng space doon sa pinaglabanan shrine na doon naman talaga ang yung site of battle na appropriate space para sa mga monumentong ito. Kaya yun na lang po, kesa po mawala yung mga monumento na yan, pumayag kami na bigyan ng space dun sa pinaglabanan shrine.
Lessons learned na lang, Director Arevalo. I think NHCP, one of your duties really to maintain this. Kasi nga pag kami, bumabiyahe kami na Nancy, St. Pia, sa ibang bansa talagang wow, talagang well lit lahat, pinagmamalaki. Pride di ba? Ito, saan yung pride mo dyan? Pag may dumaan ka dyan, kailangan pumasok ka pa ng shrine. Tabi-tabi na sila. Nandun na yung pinaka-main dambana. Yun yung center yan di ba? Bago na pa rin sa buong taon ako yung mayor, 20 years ago, hindi yan naging sagabal sa traffic. Kaya nga nilagay po yan dyan Datos siya ng excuse lang. NHCP, again, I hope that you will fight for this next time. These are landmarks and sources of pride. Di ba? Let us not give in to wishes of politicians. Di ba? Ako, nalungkot ako dito Kasi, again, tracing back to history, hindi lang bantayog pinagawa natin. Yung Museo ng Katipunan, although maintained by the NHCP, was my project when I was mayor. The El Deposito, for the record, hindi po project ng bago mayor yan. Project po ng mother ko, tinuloy niya yan noon pa. That's part of it So, itong mga museum na to were started by us and turned over to NHCP kasi nga, ang namin, alagaan nyo. Di ba? Ang pagkukulang lang namin siguro, Madam Chair, itong mga museo, siguro na-miss na namin that we should have, itong mga bantayog, we should have turned over to the NHCP. Kaya nagkaroon siya ng legal na Kaya lang, next time, kulang na nga tayo sa patriotism, sa pagmamahal sa bayan, ang mga bata, kailangan natin palakasin. Huwag sana tayong pumayag. Nakakalungkot di ba? Kasi that's how important, you're just lucky that Senator, our chair, Senator Pia, Senator Lauren, our protem, si Senator Binay, kami mahihilig kami sa history dito, pero bihira ito. Sa totoo lang. Bihira ang mahilig kasi nga wala kayong botong makukuha dito. Yung pagmamahal na lang taga in passion. Di ba? So yun lang, Madam Chair, just wanted to be on record. I hope this does not happen anymore. We have to protect our pride, our culture, our history, and not succumb to wishes of politicians because of this. Kasi dapat yung mga ganito, i-identify nyo yan Diba? Yun lang, Madam Chair.
Just to add na lang po, yes pa, Senator JV, I see your point. So we'll explore the possibilities na what happened, and check our guidelines.
Madam Chair, kwento ko lang sa inyo, nandun pa naman yung mga bantayog, but it's inside the shrine, and it's camouflaged by the tree. Sabi ko kung panahon na sumugod si Andres Bonifacio sana, maganda yun kasi hindi sila makikita. Camouflage Di ba? Hindi sila makikita ng mga mga Kastila. Ngayon, hindi mo na makikita talaga. Nakatago sa puno. Di ba? Talagang tinago Nakakalungkot. And these are landmarks. Di ba? Sources of pride. Sana hindi na ito maulit.
Okay, Senator JV, you're okay? All right. Thank you. I hope his concern now, which the committee takes note of pero kayo nga ang inaasahan natin na mag-action sa mga tong mga bagay. All right, so with no other senator here and no reservations, no more questions, the budgets of NCCA, NHCP, NLP, NAP, KWF, and CCP are deemed submitted to the plenary, subject to our discussions and the submissions of documents to clarify any issues raised, and of course your requests and wish lists, so that the committee can peruse it, and you can expect our support to the best of our ability. So on that note, this hearing is hereby suspended. Thank you very much to everyone for your time.